All right, it being on or about 6:30 on June 8, 2026, I call the meeting of the Easton Conservation Commission to order. This meeting is being conducted remotely over Zoom. Attendance by board and commission members is remote, and remote attendance shall count towards a quorum. Let's begin as we always do with a roll call vote to establish quorum. Carroll, present.
Rossman, present.
Goodman, present.
Spadia, present.
Vecchio, present.
All right, seeing as we have full quorum, we'll move on to our agenda. First item of business is general public comment. This is an opportunity for members of the public to give us a general comment about something in the town, not directed towards a particular matter on the agenda tonight. There will be opportunities for each agenda item for public comment. So if anyone's here to give a general public comment, please raise your hand. Seeing none, we'll move to our next item, which is hearings and possible deliberations. Up first is 89 Pequonnet Ave.
Hey, good evening, everyone. Can you hear me and see the plan?
We can hear you, we can see you, and we can see the plan.
Awesome. For the record, Peter Lyons with Collins Civil Engineering Group, representing the homeowner at 89 Pequonnet Avenue. We're here for an RDA relative to the repair of a failed 3-bedroom residential septic system. Quick overview of the property. Pretty much at the rear lot line, we have a BVW. That same area is the 100-foot inner riparian zone to a riverfront area located to the east off the plan. The 200-foot outer riparian falls in the middle of the backyard. The 50-foot and 100-foot BVW buffers are shown on the plan, all in the backyard. We do have a flood zone on this site, noted as elevation 133.4, which is basically in the backyard and down gradient from the house. The work being done does fall within the 100-foot buffer to the flood elevation. So what we're proposing is basically replacing the septic tank on the rear of the house, coming out the side to a 20-foot by 30-foot leaching field. The existing leaching field is in the backyard. That's going to be abandoned in place. Excuse me. We show sedimentation control surrounding the entire project, starting at the back deck, wrapping up and paralleling the property line to accommodate the new septic components, as well as site access, which will be through the driveway and this little area here. This one's pretty straightforward. We are proposing some conservation posts in the backyard. I believe in the staff report it was mentioned that we could eliminate this one out in the woods here. So the plan shows 4. I think we're going to end up with 3 posts along the existing tree line. Yeah, that's pretty much what we got for you. I don't think there were any other questions. It doesn't look like any major tree work will be done. All of the large trees are shown on the plan and should be clear of the proposed leaching area. It looks like just a little bit of brush associated with the new septic system will probably be trimmed back. Any questions from the commission on this one?
I have no questions. I think it's well designed. I would agree with the comment that we can get rid of that marker that's sort of out in the woods. I think it does more harm than good. Questions or comments from any other members of the commission? Staff comment on this, Jen?
I'll just note that the compost pile is a little close to the wetland, but it's not too close. So just don't go any closer to the wetland than the existing compost area, and then it's fine.
Sure.
I saw a bunch of shaking heads, but I think I undercut everybody. Any questions or comments from members of the commission? Seeing none, is there any public comment here for 89 Pequonnet Ave? Seeing none, Peter, I assume you'd like to close.
Yes, please.
Motion to close the public hearing for 89 Pequonnet Ave.
So moved.
Carol motion, Goodman second, roll call vote. Carol, I.
Grossman, aye.
Goodman, aye.
Spady, aye.
Vecchio, aye.
Motion to issue a determination under the Wetland Protection Act that it's a +5 and -1. Determination under the bylaw as a -2.
Grossman, second.
Carol motion, Crossman second, roll call vote. Carol, I.
Grossman, aye.
Goodman, aye.
Spady, aye.
Vecchio, aye.
Thank you, Peter.
I got the next. Ooh.
So up next is 33 Coughlin Road, which is a notice of intent for a septic repair.
All right, this is me again. Just repeating for the record, Peter Lyons with Collins Civil Engineering Group, representing the property owner at 33 Coughlin Road. This is kind of a busy site off to the northwest, up top left. We have a certified vernal pool listed as number 8410. And just outside of that is a BVW. Certified vernal pool labeled as flags 1 through 3. BVW flags 1 through 5 are shown on the plan. The blue line is the 100-foot vernal pool resource, and out in the front yard, basically encompassing the whole site, is the 100-foot buffer to the resource, I believe you call it. 50-foot BVW buffer right in the backyard. 100-foot BVW buffer cuts through the house. This site is a little challenging. The existing plumbing comes out of the back house and not really feasible to relocate it. So we are putting the proposed septic tank and a pump chamber in the back of the house. We were able to site the leaching field in the front yard, which obviously maximizes our separation to the resource, as well as helps us avoid a mound. The groundwater out back is basically at the surface. This would be a 4 or 5 foot mound if it were out back. By putting it in the front yard, we're not really looking at any grading changes. Looks like maybe a foot or so at the most. So our goal is always to maximize the distances to the resources, but due to the plumbing, the tanks need to be out back. The tanks as shown are as close as 35 feet to the resource and more like 40, low 40 feet to the septic tank. Because we had to go around the house this way, really couldn't keep them out of the 50. Sedimentation control here basically wraps around the entire site, tight to the lot line on the west side and the north, and then ending at some concrete structures on the right side, some existing slabs that are to remain. A stone wall basically surrounds the entire property, so we have kind of natural sedimentation control in the back, but we are providing the 12-inch filter mitt additionally. With this one, we've proposed 3 conservation posts in locations shown on the plan by the square markers. Details, as always, shown on the plan: 4x4 posts, cemented, concreted into the ground. That's about it. I just would like to point out, based on the staff reports, when this wetland was initially delineated in the spring, Brook Monroe did hang some flags for an isolated wetland. It's kind of this stop sign looking shape in the back here, the gray flags. Jennifer and I, we met on site and kind of walked around and checked things out. I did some soil borings in 3 areas shown on the plan, which revealed B layer soils, indicating non-hydric soil conditions. So we actually removed all of these flags and kicked the BVW back to the stone wall. That's appropriate with the topography for the site. So I just wanted to point that out. I think that's about it. We're showing soil stockpiling out in the front yard. Again, just maximizing our distance to the resource. Any questions from the commission on this one?
Do you have a DEP number on this yet?
I as of earlier, I think we're still waiting on it.
Okay. And then on the soil data, the soil testing, have you uploaded any of that for us?
No. I mean, we can. I basically just dig down until I hit, it's indicated on the plan that we found BW soils with the just prescribed color to that. So it is kind of noted on the plan. Um, we could provide additional test pit logs. I don't think it's necessary, but that's up to the commission.
I think if you can provide test pit logs, it'd be helpful for us.
Yeah, what elevation is that, Peter?
What elevation? Approximately 186 as shown by the contours.
Well, that's the surface. Where did you find the 10YR56?
About 6 to 12 inches down.
Okay, and I'm a little confused because earlier you said groundwater was almost at the surface in the backyard, so you wouldn't have a 10YR56 there.
Relatively high in the backyard, yes.
Okay, so
We show it as groundwater elevation at the tanks. We did a test hole with the excavator. We show groundwater at 184.5. Typically, I go down about a foot, 12 to 18 inches with the auger. And if I'm finding that, BW soils, I usually stop at that point, indicating we have non-hydric soils, 12 to 18 inches down.
okay, so but you're gonna provide some.
Yeah, I can just add it to the existing test pit logs. We can add a couple more.
Thank you.
They're only going to be like 2 feet.
Photographs
but
of the
it'll show
soil.
what you need.
We'll probably have to go out there together because it's not quite making sense yet.
Okay.
Any questions or comments from other members of the commission? Seeing none, any public comment here for 33 Coughlin Road? Seeing none, Peter, I assume you'd like a continuance here as we're waiting on DEP and there's some questions.
Correct. We're waiting on DEP anyways. I'm actually going to be in town tomorrow, so I could get by here in the morning. I don't know if Jen or anyone's available to meet me. If not, I could definitely, log it, take some photos of, the locations indicated on the plan to accompany the test pit logs that we'll submit.
Thank you. Motion to continue 33 Coughlin to the 6/29/26 meeting of the Easton Conservation Commission.
Spady, second.
Carol motion, Spady a second. Roll call vote. Carol, aye.
Crossman, aye.
Goodman, aye.
Spady, aye.
Ratio I.
Thanks, Peter.
All right, thank you.
Up next is 58 Turnpike Street, which is a notice of intent for septic repair.
Hi, Samantha Cripps, PMP Consulting. I will share my screen in just a moment.
Thank you.
Yeah. This is on behalf of the applicant Clink LLC for a repair to a failed septic system at a single family dwelling, a 4-bedroom system at 58 Turnpike Street. We have a BVW to the rear of the home, and the 50-foot buffer comes up through the majority of the rear yard, and the 100-foot buffer comes about halfway through the existing dwelling, so most of the site is within the buffer zone. The home is to be renovated. They are doing some minor exterior work on the front of the dwelling outside the buffer zone. They're replacing the deck with a new deck, as the ADA ramp that is currently on site is no longer needed. The septic system is designed to go in the rear. Unfortunately, there's nowhere else on the site that either the tank or the leaching field can go, so we are requesting a couple waivers from the bylaw to place the leaching field within the 50-foot buffer zone. We did ask for a local upgrade from the Board of Health to place it as close to the existing dwelling as we can. Jen had a couple comments in the staff report. We did add some wetland markers, and I had to revise a little bit of the paperwork, so I got that back over. Yeah, within the buffer zone. I think that's about it. We did get a couple comments from DEP due to requesting the waiver to the 50-foot setback from the leaching field. And also DEP had found that there is a mapped wetland change in this area of the site right here. I believe both were deferred to the commission to sort out how to go about that. Maybe we can provide some plantings in this low point of the site here. We are providing erosion controls around the entirety of the limit of work. I do know that Jen has not been able to go out on site because there's a decent amount of trash around the rear yard here, and it's just it's pretty busy out there. So I'm still coordinating with the applicant to get all that removed, and I will follow up with Jen once the site is cleared and she's able to go out there. But yeah, if anyone has any questions, I don't believe we'll be able to close because Jen still needs to conduct her site visit and kind of get her bearings out there. But yeah, I'd be happy to answer any questions or.
So the public benefit that you're contemplating proposing is potentially some additional plantings?
Yeah, we'd definitely be amenable to that. The contours kind of make this divot down here. I believe this is where the wetland mapping, the year was 2008. This was before the applicant has owned this property, so, but there is definitely an area down here where wetlands were previously, so we would be happy to plant some bayberry or winterberry shrubs.
Well, those are two different things. One is DEP saying there's a violation that would need to be restored, and then the waiver under the bylaw is a public benefit. It's not the same thing. You can't
right
double count that. So first we should take care of the DEP comment that there's a potential violation out there that would need to be addressed. And if we find that that's not the case, then yes, that would be appropriate to put plantings in there, but it can't double count if it is actually a violation.
Mm.
So in a situation like this, we need some articulable public benefit, understanding that it is a septic system repair. But in order to give a waiver, we have to be able to articulate some public benefit that's derived from it.
I mean, there's nowhere else to put the system on site. I'm not really sure any alternative that could be proposed. So it's really just the constraints of the site and to get the system into compliance with Title V.
Well, your idea of planting would meet that public benefit requirement, but it
sorry, got you.
Can't be the same area as a violation. That would need to be
okay. Yeah, I mean, we could definitely do some additional around. This is kind of a minor vegetated buffer bordering the BVW back here, so we can definitely enhance the entirety of the rear of the limit of disturbance, separate from the area that has the wetland mapping.
It'll be a little clearer when we do the site inspection.
Yeah, now
So
what,
do you know how far along they are with removing all of the trash that's out there?
I know it's in progress, but I'm not sure of the status. I know someone checked in a few days ago. There was still stuff out there. So I have followed up with the applicant, but I haven't heard back. So I'm not entirely sure on that. But hopefully I can have an update later this week.
Sounds good. Thank you. Sorry, Mike, I didn't mean to jump in right
no,
there.
no, that's fine. I actually was gonna ask something a similar line of, I have not been to the site unfortunately, so I'm looking at Google Earth and I can see some debris and a falling down building and an old pool, but how bad is it out there? It just looks like a bunch of scrap metal and, some stuff, but nothing,
Yeah, I do site inspections pretty much everywhere, but when there's a lot of wood with nails coming up through it, mixed in with dirt and trash along the entire site, that's where I'm gonna say I'm gonna wait until it's a little bit safer to do that inspection. Google Earth is at a certain date and time. It might not be reflecting current conditions.
oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
No, it was more a question of, of, how serious are they about this project? Because if there's that, that's really not a big job, I guess, that's just kind of like, I don't know. It just doesn't seem like there's a lot of things that aren't ready for this meeting, so I'm just not really sure why we're here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
when we get an application, we have to act within 21 days of receiving,
Right.
and that's why they have to be on the agenda at that time.
Yeah. Understood.
Yeah.
So any questions or comments from other members of the commission?
We're just continuing this, right? I would assume.
Yeah. Any public comment here for 58 Turnpike? Motion to continue 58 Turnpike Street to the 6/29/26 meeting of the Easton Conservation Commission.
82nd.
Carol motion, Spady a second. Roll call vote. Carol, aye.
Grossman, aye.
Goodman, aye.
Spady, aye.
Vecchio, aye.
Up next is 10 Morse Road, which is a notice of intent for house construction.
All right, this is an application for a duplex for South Shore Habitat for Humanity. This project has been in the permitting process for kind of a few years. It's coming in and out of planning and zoning and the Board of Health and whatnot. We did need to update the plan. The BVW back here was incorrectly shown initially, so we revised the plan accordingly, added all the correct buffer zones. The BVW is associated with this agricultural pond back here, and there's another resource area to the rear. There is a flood zone associated with this irrigation pond as well, so we included those buffers. The site also is within an ACEC, so the majority of the site is within the buffer zone. There is a decent upslope in between the resource area and the project site as kind of a physical buffer. And there will be a new duplex. These are the two units here. Their associated septic systems are shown from the dashed lines here. This has been permitted through the Board of Health. So yeah, the most of the site is within the ACEC buffer. Within the 100-foot buffer to the BVW is just some minor site grading. There will be associated, utilities, parking. We are providing some plantings for the proposed design. Let me see. Jen had us add the wetland markers back here. We added a couple beyond the 50-foot buffer. She did note that the site has been previously cleared out here. I think they've just done kind of sporadic mowing out there, as we weren't under the impression that the site was in the buffer zone as it's shown on this plan. So now that we're aware, we're coming in front of you guys for an NOI. We are asking for a couple waivers on this one as well. The site is also within an NHESP, so we are asking for the waiver for work within the NHESP zone as well as the ACEC buffer. So it is permitted through the Board of Health, Planning, Zoning. This is the erosion control line, even though this is kind of the upslope, so everything is going towards the street basically. But yeah, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Could you just walk me through grade on the driveway?
Yeah, this is an 89 here. It's coming right straight down towards the street, 89 to 86. This area is pretty steep on site. There's like a berm and some vegetation that kind of line the street here. So we're just pushing that back, and it will be pitched upwards towards the 2 units.
And what is this driveway? Is it proposed pervious? Is it crushed stone?
It's proposed as paved, but I'm sure we'd be amenable to discussing alternatives.
I think my just concern is water flow, given the amount of surface area here onto the street, and issues with erosion. And I'm wondering if that has been considered at all in the design.
Yeah, the finished grade won't be too steep. I believe these are these contours are probably about 20 feet offset, so it's not too steep. This whole area will kind of even out and it'll all get pushed back. But I mean, we could maybe install like some stone diaphragms on either of the side and kind of direct the water flow to some crushed stone or a potential alternative.
I think that makes some sense. Just a design solution around that. Jen, do you have any staff comment here?
Well, it's a similar comment on the waivers. What's the public benefit to be shown? You know, the area has been cleared before getting the permit, so there's opportunity there to certainly reforest, replant those areas. It is helpful when I send the staff report to have a written response so that I know there are revised plans and new information, because none of that has been reviewed if it's been submitted.
Yeah, I think the only revision we put on the plans were the wetland markers. But this planting area in here is all native plantings. I believe we have a schedule of about 12, 14.
Sure. I mean, those are landscaping plans. It's not a reforested area for vegetation that's been removed without permits.
Yeah, I mean, it would be kind of difficult to plant up here because this is a high point, so it wouldn't necessarily be reinforcing like the resource area itself, because this is a ridge back here, so I'm not sure.
The buffer zone is a resource area and it is a rare species habitat in the ACEC. So
okay, so maybe we could do some upland trees or something back in this vicinity.
Something native to the area, yeah, would be helpful.
Okay.
Anything else?
Mr. Chair, if I may, isn't this project in and of itself a public benefit, being Habitat for Humanity?
Historically, we have not considered those types of benefits to be the same as the benefits that we've accepted for waivers. So we've considered the argument of increased housing, for example, as being something that would allow waivers, but typically we've required it to be tied to one of the purposes of our bylaw.
Yeah, that's a fair explanation. I know in the past it was accepted, or it was a consideration, you know, in favor, maybe not to the letter, or more to more to the spirit. That spot, as I said, it's been just prior disturbed. It's been empty for I can't even remember how long. So that in and of itself, I think, is a good addition to that neighborhood. I mean, it's not really a neighborhood, it's a street, but you get my meaning where that little area there. I just think it's some consideration should be given for the aspect of habit for humanity.
I don't disagree at all. Any other questions or comments from members of the commission? Any public comment here tonight for 10 Morse Road? Seeing none, I'm going to move for a continuance. Motion to continue 10 Morse Road to the 6/29/26 meeting of the Easton Conservation Commission.
Grossman second.
Carol motion, Crossman second. Roll call vote. Carol, aye.
Grossman, aye.
Goodman, aye.
Beatty, aye.
SUI.
And up next is 313 Turnpike Street. Notice of intent for construction of a 200 by 60 8-bay commercial/office building with parking, utilities, stormwater, septic, and grading. Oh, I'm sorry, we can't hear you. We can see the plans, but we can't hear you.
Sorry about that. Can you hear me now?
You're up. Yep, you're up.
All right.
Very well.
Hi, I'm Courtney with PMP, here to talk about 313 Turnpike Street. This is a almost 2-acre parcel of land that has a isolated wetland system up here on the northern property line, and then a bordering vegetated wetland system here on the western side. There is an existing paved driveway coming down this north section of the property. And in this area, there was once a single family home that has since been demolished. This driveway and some of this old silt fence is still there. And we are proposing to remove the driveway up until like right about here and take this entire section of pavement, take that out and replant that with some native buffer zone appropriate plantings. Jen noted in her staff report that we did not provide a very robust planting plan for that area, so that will be forthcoming. And then we are proposing to build a 8-bay commercial building here. It's a 200 by 60 square foot warehouse type building with paved parking out front and a dumpster pad here. Each of these units would be rented out to a different contractor. Peyton Development typically leases to like electricians and plumbers, occasionally landscapers, but they are aware of limitations with what can and cannot be stored in ACEC and sensitive environments. So while we don't have like a specific list of items that they would have banned, we are open to including that. I know that they would prefer to have no petroleum stored on site. All right, here is the layout and materials plan showing In a little more detail, this parking area, this is a little mechanical utility and fire protection room. And we are proposing a paved gravel, or not paved, I'm sorry, a gravel access road coming off of this paved driveway that will be remaining outside of the 50-foot buffer. This is all within the 100-foot wetland buffer, and this is the 100-foot ACEC buffer. The entire site's within the I'm sorry, Hawkmock Swamp ACEC. And then here is our grading, drainage, and utility plan. We are proposing some roof infiltration Coltex back here where there isn't any like no travel, no cars going over it, so the plastic chambers will be okay. This will handle and recharge the runoff coming off of the roof system. We've designed a septic system over here off to the side. We have not yet submitted this to the Board of Health yet. I wanted to make sure what we were submitting was the final plan. And we have a proposed industrial holding tank for floor drains if there are trench drains inside here. Which I didn't see that we had any proposed trench drains, but it looks like we must. And then for stormwater, we have in sediment forebay here in this corner that collects all of the runoff from this pavement. You can see it's sloped. The high point is up along this building and this back corner, and then it slopes down into this curb inlet deep sump catch basin. Goes into the sediment forebay. This also collects runoff that goes into this trench drain. And then we have a culvert that brings it over to this bioretention basin where it infiltrates into the ground. And in the event of it overflowing, it will overflow over riprap spillway towards the BVW. Or, I'm sorry, this is the isolated vegetated wetlands. And then this is our pretty landscape plan picture, showing some arborvitae plantings down here as a vegetative screening. We are proposing to maintain the existing vegetation here, the forested area, and we are going to maintain the existing vegetation between the driveway and the property line with the mobile home park. And this area here that we are planning to remove the pavement, we will have a better planting plan for that on the next round. And that is the main summary of the project for now. I know that we do have peer review to go through. I did send just today the stormwater, the SWIP draft for the site to Jen, and some corrected paperwork. But there are still some items to be addressed that I intend to address with the peer review. I have the stormwater report if there are any more questions about any of those aspects. I don't know, is there anything else that I could speak to?
So this is heading towards or is in peer review. And do you have a DEP number yet?
Yes.
Okay.
The DEP number is SE152 1876.
Jen, do you have any additional staff comment here?
I don't. Some new information was submitted today, so I'll take a look at that tomorrow.
I knew you wouldn't see it before now.
A week before, at least.
Yeah.
Any questions or comments from members of the commission? Seeing none, any public comment here for 313 Turnpike Street?
There is one comment.
So you've been
Ed.
promoted. Sorry, Jen, did you cut in?
TED 34 is now added.
So TED 34, you are a panelist. If you unmute yourself and turn your camera on, we should be able to hear and see you. If you have public comment, please introduce yourself by name and address for the public record. There's also a chat function at the bottom of the screen. You can write in if you have a comment that you'd like displayed via text, or even let us know if you're having a tech issue and we can hold, wait, or try to help you through it. All right, seeing neither, in consideration that we have a rather thick agenda tonight, and I'm about to make a motion to continue this, I'm willing to wait a little longer if TED 34 has a comment, but we are going to have to move on in about 30 seconds. Okay, I'm going to make a motion to continue 313 Turnpike Street to the 6/29/26 meeting of the Easton Conservation Commission.
Second.
Carol motion, Goodman second, roll call vote. Carol, aye.
Crossman, aye.
Goodman, aye.
Beatty, aye.
SGOI.
Up next is 15 Kimberly Drive. It's a notice of intent for the construction of a garage, driveway, utilities, grading, stormwater management, and vernal pool habitat and buffer zone.
Just before we start on that one, TED 34, there was another option, and it said put on hold or remove. So I tried to put him on hold, thinking that would put him back in the attendance, and now I don't see him either place. So hopefully I didn't kick him out of the meeting.
Okay.
So just hopefully the person will
Yeah,
come back, because I don't see him in either place now.
no, thank you for noting it.
Oh, there he is.
Yeah.
Let's move to 15 Kimberly Drive.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Scott Rogers from JK Home Engineering. Can you see me and hear me?
We can hear you, we can see you, and we can see the plan.
All right. So this particular project is located on 15 Kimberly Drive. It's an existing house. The wetland areas were flagged by ECR Brad Holmes. There's a wetland area on the southwest corner of the property, actually off of our site. That's a BBW. There's also a potential vernal pool located approximately 10 to 15 feet downgrading of that bordering land, BVW. And there's a finger-like projection that kind of runs east to west. That's sort of a drainage ditch, but it is part of the BVW, so it's noted as such. So with the potential vernal pool, we also showed that 100-foot resource area and the 100-foot buffer zone as well. That's in the light blue color. So the proposal for the project is a garage / workshop. It is 30 feet by 48 feet. So because we are in obviously the buffer zones and because we are in close proximity to the potential vernal pool, we're doing some mitigation measures here. So the first thing that we're doing is we're going to put in a small extension of the driveway located in front of that garage workshop. That'll be made of basically bricks, which are on site, and that'll be a sand bed. So it's more of a pervious paver type than just basically, bituminous concrete, if you will. We're also proposing a couple of different buffer zone enhancement areas. The first one is on the northern side, kind of up against the existing tree line, if you will. And there's another one that's located basically on the southern side over here next to that wall that was existing basically. And the buffer zone enhancement plantings consist of some red maples, blueberry, inkberry, some arrowwood, as well as some sweet pepper bush. The other thing that we're doing, there's an existing catch basin in the driveway out heading towards Kimberly Drive. We're going to put in a flex storm insert, which is basically one of those plastic / fabric, if you will, that slides right into that catch basin. So that'll provide some additional stormwater quality for that catch basin that exists on site. Then we also are proposing within that, and I'm going to call it a drainage ditch, even though it is technically a BVW. We're going to put in a couple of stone check dams located down here, kind of like, partially through the length of that finger-like projection, if you will. And that's going to help also provide a little bit of stormwater quality in the fact that the water coming off of that will be kind of cleansed and slow down the volume or the, slow down the water a little bit, the runoff a little bit there. And then last but not least, we are going to propose a bioretention area, which is on the north side of the garage. And we had some test bits done last Friday that was reviewed as well by Strong Point Engineering. They were on site with us as well. And we will be waiting for a peer review from, I believe, Strong Point Engineering as well. So with that, I'd like to answer any questions that you may have.
I was just reviewing staff comment, which it seems like a lot was needed to be addressed and still does to an extent, but we're in the process. Jen, do you have any additional staff comment you want to get to here?
Aside from the staff comment letter, you're mentioning that the finger-like projection at the bottom is BVW?
Correct.
Okay. But then you're proposing to alter the BVW by putting in check dams and turning it into a stormwater area?
We could remove those check dams. My opinion was that it was going to help improve the stormwater because essentially it's a swale, if you will. But we can remove those if the commission so desires.
It's which are you proposing though, Scott? Because it needs to meet performance standards for bordering vegetated wetland.
So I would say we should remove them then.
Nothing additional from the staff comment letter. There's a lot in there.
Any additional questions or comments from members of the commission? Seeing none, any public comment here for 15 Kimberly Drive? Seeing none, I'll make a motion to continue the hearing on 15 Kimberly Drive to the 6/29/26 meeting of the Easton Conservation Commission.
Vecchio second.
Carol motion, Vecchio second, roll call vote, Carol I.
Rossman, aye.
Goodman, aye.
Beatty, aye.
Vecchio, aye.
Thank you. Up next is 383 Bay Road, which is a notice of intent for 8-unit housing commercial building, stormwater, parking, and utilities.
Good evening. For the record, again, my name is Scott Rogers from JK Home Engineering. This particular site is located at 383 Bay Road. It is located behind the existing gas station / car wash and across the street from the CVS. Currently, the site has an existing residence on the property that will be removed with the project. There's also obviously wetlands on site. Those were flagged by ECR, Brad Holmes. There is a BVW, which is located off-site. You can see the flags go from A1 to A10. There's also an inland bank even further in the northwest corner shown on the plan. And we've shown the appropriate buffer zones as well as the riverbank areas. There's also an existing driveway that runs basically east to west and then takes the corner and runs down next to the gas station / car wash, and that's the basically access road for Dollar Tree. So for this project, we are proposing, 8 units of residential as well as commercial units on the first floor. That particular building that you're looking at is 48 feet by 160. And basically, most of the development is within previously disturbed areas. Basically, the area from the existing driveway to Dollar Tree up to Bay Road is all grass, a small driveway and a small house. The other areas that we are disturbing are on the northwest corner, and I'll get to that in a minute, and I'll show you that. So there are 2 small parking areas proposed for the project, one on the north side and 1 parking area behind the building, between the proposed building and the existing access drive. We're also proposing ADA spaces as well as EV or electrical vehicle spaces. As far as the grading and drainage goes, we are proposing 1 underground storm tech infiltration system, which is located in the parking area to the rear. And in order to kind of meet, the low impact development wishes and desires, we're trying to put in a bioretention area located in the northwest corner of the site. That's the area where we have disturbance as well over there. And there'll be a sediment forebay that precedes that bioretention area. Both of the basins, the underground chamber system and the bioretention area, both of those basins have been designed for the 10, 25, and 100-year storm. And for the bioretention area, there's a riprap spillway, which is basically above the 100-year storm event. So if there wasn't a storm event above the 100-year, that would basically, fill up and discharge that riprap emergency overflow. Other utilities that are shown are mostly in the front of the site. Obviously, there's going to be a water line as well as a sprinkler system, and a sewer line and a gas line and telephone, electric, and data. But all those utilities will be in the front of the property on the Bay Road side. And then as far as sediment erosion control, we have proposed a stabilized construction exit. We are proposing a construction trailer as well as porta potties, if you will. There'll be silt sock, which will be placed at the limit of work, which is shown up against the 50 in some spots, and it surrounds the northern property line where that bioretention basin is going to be. We're also proposing a couple of temporary sediment basins so that the runoff will basically be pointed toward those temporary sediment basins before it just discharges to the resource areas. And then there'll be silt sacks proposed within the existing catch basins, which do exist. You can see there's 3 catch basins within that existing Dollar Tree driveway, and then there'll be proposed catch basins on our site. So all of those existing and proposed catch basins will receive those silt sacks. And then we are showing a laydown area as well on the southern side of the site. So with this project, we obviously we submitted a full set of plans. We've submitted a full stormwater report, which includes an O&M plan. And this project, the amount of disturbance is a little over 33,000 square feet. So we will not need to do an EPA NPDES permit. And then we did receive staff review comment letter, and I believe we're also waiting for a peer review. I'm not sure which consultant that will be, but we have made the payment to get that peer review going. So with that, I'd like to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. I think the majority of mine will come through peer review in response to the staff comments. Jen, do you have anything else you want to add here for staff comment?
Yeah, there are a substantial number of staff comments to address. Maybe the most obvious one is the buffer zones are not correct. So there's an additional 100-foot buffer zone for each of the resource areas in the ACEC.
Any questions or comments from members of the commission? Jen, did you have any more here? I didn't mean to jump from you without asking.
No, I had the list in the staff comment. It's substantially long. So.
Any public comment here for 383 Bay Road? Seeing none, I'm going to make a motion to continue the public hearing on 383 Bay Road to the 6/29/26 meeting of the Easton Conservation Commission.
Crossman second.
Carol motion, Crossman second, roll call vote. Carol, aye.
Crossman, aye.
Goodman, aye.
Beatty, aye.
Vecchio, aye.
So we're heading into continued hearings and possible deliberations. I'm going to make a motion for a brief recess here. So motion for let's call it how about we come back at 7:35?
Second.
Carol motion, Goodman second, roll call vote. Carol, aye.
Crossman, aye.
Goodman, aye.
Beatty, aye.
Vecchio, aye.
See you all in a little over 5.
7:35.
All right, so noting for the record, we are back at 7:35. I'm just going to ask for a roll call vote to reestablish quorum, and we'll call our next agenda item. Carol present.
Crossman present.
Goodman present.
Beatty present.
Vecchio present.
Seeing as we have a quorum, we'll move on to continued hearings and possible deliberations. First up is 581 Foundry Street, which is a notice of intent for aquatic plant management.
Hi, everyone. My name is Joe Honorato with Water and Wetland. You can all hear me, right? Just some
We can
thumbs up.
hear you. We can see you.
Perfect. I appreciate it. So we're continued, obviously, and I know your agenda is pretty extensive tonight, so I'll just get you up to speed with a little brief refresher, and then talk about some of the things that happened from the last hearing to now, and then we can move into questions. So we're here to talk about New Pond and some invasive species. So we surveyed New Pond last year and found extensive invasive species, specifically fanwort and variable milfoil, really throughout 100% of the pond at varying densities. It was actually more dense towards the center and then kind of faded out as you work towards the edges, as well as invasive purple loosestrife around the shoreline. So we did take some water quality at that time. Believe it or not, the phosphorus was not all that elevated. You know, we strive to keep total phosphorus below 25 parts per billion. It was at about 15.7, so well below the 25 part per billion threshold. So believe it or not, nutrients are really not fueling this problem. These invasive species were introduced and are just thriving. Both of these species spread through fragmentation and they can thrive in varying conditions. So, So the first thing we do, regardless of a notice of intent, is, we look at options. We say, what are we going to do here? How are we going to control these species? We know it's a major problem. They're outcompeting native species. We want natives to recolonize. We want to try to selectively control these invasive species as best as possible. So, we look at all the available options. We refer to the Guide to Aquatic Plant Management, which is a supplement to the Wetlands Protection Act, really there as a resource for all of us on this call. We look at things like dredging, obviously tens of millions of dollars to dredge this pond, which would essentially remove all the organic material, so on and so forth. But again, these species spread through fragmentation. We're working within an ACEC, so we'd be disturbing the bottom sediments, the cost, obviously. Secondly, we consider just mechanical control, so mechanical harvesting or a mechanical hydro rake. But as mentioned before, these species spread through fragmentation. So the last thing we want to do is exacerbate that problem by bringing in high-powered machinery. There's access issues, there's offload issues. So those two are ruled out. Everybody wants to do triploid grass carp, right? A fish that eats vegetation. Well, that's an easy one to rule out because they're prohibited in Massachusetts for a variety of reasons, right? So that biological control really doesn't exist. Benthic mats, right? You can shade the sunlight, take away the sunlight that's fueling this growth. But the last thing we want to do is line this pond like a swimming pool, right? We want to be selective, and that shades all vegetation. Maybe okay for a little dock area, small area. $45,000 to $60,000 per acre, quickly ruled out. So we really landed on two strategies as part of this notice of intent. The use of aquatic herbicides, which are EPA approved, and then furthermore, Massachusetts has their own independent review beyond the EPA. So some states like Rhode Island, for instance, just adopt the EPA registration. So if it's approved by the EPA, you can use it in Rhode Island. Massachusetts has a far more extensive review process where they look at it independently and really look at all that research and then choose whether they want to approve these products or not. And then we selected DASH, so diver-assisted suction harvesting, where divers can go in and hand pull individual plants, or diver hand pulling, which is just same thing, but in shallow areas. You're not using tubes. You're just kind of putting it in a burlap bag, and then it gets hauled away. So those are the two techniques we selected, right? So then you think about order, right? What are we going to do first? What are we going to do second? Well, DASH is definitely effective on milfoil and fanwort, but generally speaking, as you get greater than a quarter acre, especially in high densities, it's just insurmountable. You'll just never get to it, and that's through the direction in the aquatic, the Guide to Aquatic Plant Management. They say it's meant for just small spot areas. Or the case where we plan to use DASH in New Pond is really just a follow-up after we get the initial infestation under control. So then you think, okay, well, if DASH is going to be used as a follow-up, how do we get it under control? Well, aquatic herbicides. So the next question is, well, which ones, right? There's plenty of aquatic herbicides. Fanwort is really one of the biggest wild cards here because there's really only 2 registered aquatic herbicides that work on fanwort. So what we chose is the only systemic option, which is Sonar. So that's a brand name, not to be confused with Sonar Waves or anything like that. It's the brand name of an aquatic herbicide, active ingredient fluoridone. So we can control fanwort at about 8 to 10 plus part per billion concentration. Variable milfoil is a little bit higher. The reason I mention that is because it's part per billion concentration with the big B. Part per billion, just to put it into context, is like a single drop from an eyedropper in a large water tanker, right? So we're talking just very, very low concentrations to control these plants. Also the selectivity, right? So water lilies, for instance, if we want to control native water lilies, we really need to maintain, say, 20 parts per billion. Native pond weeds, a lot of those are 20 parts per billion plus. So we can use the rates to be very selective. Not to say that there's no impacts to native species, but minimal impacts to native species comparatively to getting systemic multi-year nuisance level control of fanwort and milfoil. So, really the goal is to get down into the roots of the milfoil and fanwort with Sonar in that initial year. And then in subsequent years, and really in year 1 as well, everything is based on survey data. So absolutely require a year-end report, surveys, I'd encourage the commission, but those surveys become very important, especially in subsequent years, because we can analyze, hey, how did everything work in year 1? We know we'll get great control, but to what extent? and what's left that we need to target. And is dash now much more appropriate? Do we need to spot treat? So you'll see there's a few different herbicides on there, really just to essentially put tools in the tool bag, if you will, for subsequent years. So last time we got continued, we didn't have a file number. We've since been issued a file number. There were no comments from DEP. There were some questions about PFAS and so on and so forth. We did submit, some info to Jen, and we also have some resources here from CPRO. So Josh Burnside and John Goslin from CPRO are on here just in the event they're needed. So that's the manufacturer for Sonar and Procelicor, kind of those two herbicides in question, at that last hearing. But, again, everything we're doing is approved under the GEIR, consistent with the Guide to Aquatic Plant Management, approved in Massachusetts, approved by the EPA. So, there's nothing new here. We're not recreating the wheel. This is, very, very common, very strategic, and very integrated. And it uses surveys to, really guide the management. The second thing is, or really the final point before I turn it over to you all, is Jen had brought up water quality. So we did submit some recommendations for water quality. In all fairness, we try to be mindful of budgets, right? Love it or hate it, budgets really do come up. So we try to be mindful of, water quality can just add up. It can just stack as you start to get into different depths and upstream, downstream, inlet, outlet, mid pond, these types of things, and you add parameters, they all have a cost. So really, I think, what we'd recommend if you want to consider water quality, again, the phosphorus was really not elevated at all, would be trying to replicate the water quality we did last year. I think to me, water quality trends are more important than just a single water quality event, because it's just a snapshot in time. So, that was really a suite of nutrients, TKN, nitrate, nitrite, total phosphorus, orthophosphate, and then some basic like alkalinity, pH, things like that. We also take dissolved oxygen, temperature, Secchi clarity, pH, the things we can do on site. We do that every time we're on the water, really for any reason. That's my intro. I didn't want to take too much time, so I'll turn it back over to you. Appreciate it.
Thank you for the time. Could you talk a little bit about the possibility of doing dash across the entire pond, whether or not it's feasible, what the cost breakdown looks like compared to treating with herbicide?
Yeah, so Jen had asked me what the cost per acre for dash is, and I gave a very gray answer, right?
Yeah.
It really depends on densities and so on and so forth and production. It's pure labor. So really it's billed by the day. I'll pause just there briefly, right, to just note that we're not a chemical company at Water and Wetland, right? We do full-scale dredging, mechanical removal, dash. We do everything. So I have zero preference, but dash generally bills at about $3,000 per day. So the question is, well, can we hand pull 18 acres? Can we do dash throughout 18 acres in a single day? No, especially not at these densities, right? I would say, you may get a quarter acre of production, of like sparse to moderate density in a day. So $3,000. So even at those densities, you may be talking, 12,000 per acre. Which again, budgets aren't everything, but it's much more as a spot management tool when we're really just managing regrowth after a successful herbicide application. Last hearing, not to give a long-winded answer, last hearing, the use of dash in New Hampshire came up, right? So we're well familiar with work in New Hampshire. I'd just like to note that New Hampshire does a lot of dash, absolutely, but they also do a lot of treatments, Procelicor, Sonar. They have a whole milfoil control program where they issue grants for treatment. So, they look at it exactly like we look at it, where it's a tool in the toolbox if densities and conditions are appropriate. And 18 acres at high densities is by far past that point of a pilot infestation.
Jen, do you have any staff comment here?
I do not.
Any questions or comments from other members of the commission?
Ben, I do have a comment.
Yeah, of course.
So given a lot of the information that was shared, I have kind of done my own little research, and I do not believe that our commission should approve the use of these chemicals in our waters, based on the research that was provided to us during last discussion as well as today. I believe that we should consider alternative methods, especially using DASH. I know it's more of like a spot treatment, but I think that that would be a good first step to start as opposed to fueling our water supply with chemicals. I mean, there are other states, Vermont, Wisconsin, that have denied permits using these same chemicals. The EU also has banned these chemicals. I know that the EPA, I believe the last review, I think was 2017. But even since then, there has been other peer reviews that have come out in 2025, 2024, that shows that these are some pretty nasty chemicals going on. I know that Miss Kayla Bennett provided some information for us and spoke up at the last meeting, and I hope that she's here today to speak up as well. But I'm going to vote no for using fluoridone and the other chemicals, in favor that we should be using DASH.
My question is just, I mean, it sounds to me like the DASH method does not is not all encompassing enough in this infestation will return. So I guess what is, we either vote to use the chemicals and remove the invasive species, or risk these invasive species just being there for an extended period of time. So what is the cost benefit? I guess I need more information on that.
Nate, do you mind if I jump in real quick, Ben?
No, of course.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, Nate, real quick to that too. I mean, even with chemicals, right down the road, these invasives can get dropped in by other ducks that are going to fly into that pond. Other things that could fall into that pond. A kayaker or another fishing guy doesn't clean his gear properly, so we're going to face that regardless through the future. I think what we need to focus on is what we do at this first interim is going to be big. The future we'll handle, because it's gonna come back. But I think that first blast, do we hit it with chemicals or do we do DASH? This is the pivotal point. Because it's gonna come back. Ducks are bringing it. I'm gonna tell you, there's gonna be geese, mallards. They're coming. It's gonna happen. You can't avoid it, right? Nature's nature. So, and that's not their fault. It's just nature's nature.
Yeah, I didn't want to step on the chair's toes. Am I allowed to address kind of all of that?
Yeah, of course.
Perfect. Yeah. So it's a lot to unpack here. I think, for Philip, I definitely respect the opinion. I mean, we do have, representatives here from CPRO, the manufacturer, on too, so they can speak to it. But like sonar, for instance, right? It's been around since 1986. It's been used in tens of thousands of water bodies safely. I think one thing to just be careful of, especially even with some of the information that was kind of put in front of you, is it's, in its just straight concentrated form. We're applying products in part per billion concentrations, which is highly different, right? I very hesitate to use it in the context of Windex, right? But obviously, if you drink Windex straight, you're going to get very, very, very sick. If you dilute Windex, with billions of gallons of water, it's essentially, a completely different story. So again, this is not Windex. Everything is EPA and Massachusetts approved, but it just puts it into context, right? The difference between what you read in kind of that undiluted form to the actual very low concentrations we're applying. And so Percelicor, for instance, is typically ounces to the surface acre. It's measured in PDUs because the concentrations get so low as you're talking ounces and fractions of ounces, to the acre foot and so on and so forth. So it's a much different scenario, but these all have track records. Again, this is not anything new. Nate, I think, to your point there, with really just what happens if you just do DASH and rely on it. I mean, we included DASH for a reason, right? It's an effective tool in the right situation, but not as it sits today, right? If you tried to do DASH, I mean, unless you had an absolute endless budget, but even then, right, there's just not enough time. You'd have divers out there for the entire summer and they may not make a dent. And so really, it's kind of like throwing a sheet into the wind, right? It's like trying to build an office building and you're like, hey, here's a screwdriver, right? Screwdriver is a great tool in the right situation, but just not when you're trying to complete that mission. And so I guess in that situation, in my mind, it's kind of a waste of budget in year one, right? Because you're just so much past that point. And these species spread through fragmentation. To Mike's point, right, they get introduced by waterfowl, other boaters, upstream, downstream. We're really never going to be talking eradication here. What we're going to be talking is control and allowing natives to recolonize in the area taken over by the fanwort and milfoil. And so really the only way to do that, literally, if you read the book of all the tools available, the only way we're going to get to that point, which is why we selected it, is through a good, successful, low-dose, part per billion concentration systemic herbicide treatment. That will reduce that growth, right? You'll see, great control, 90+% control. Typically, fanwort is more susceptible to fluoridone than variable milfoil. So, year 2, there might be nothing in there. There might be no invasives. Year 3, maybe you see a little bit of milfoil popping up. Well, it's not enough to treat, right? That's very manageable by dash. Year 4, little bit of milfoil. Dash again. Year 5, you're starting to see some fanwort pop up, right? But again, that's all guided by surveys. But theoretically, that's what we could expect, by getting it under control and then maintaining it with tools like dash from there. But at this point, dash just really isn't appropriate as a start.
Well, yeah, I mean, if it's a problem, and dash doesn't sound like it's going to necessarily solve the problem, and these chemical methods are approved by, they're approved by Massachusetts standards, then, I mean, that's kind of what I was getting at. It seemed like the chemical application, would be the one that would make sense, but I was just trying to get more information.
Appreciate it.
Joe, I do have a follow-up question. So this was approved by Massachusetts. Do you know, can you speak to when that was and when was the last time that was even looked at by the state?
Yeah, and we do have, I don't know if we can promote them to panelists, but we have Josh Burnside and John Goslin. John Goslin's actually on the regulatory side, but I don't have the exact dates. I know sonar, I think, was approved by the EPA in 1986. All these products go through re-registration, so it's not like the last time it was looked at was 1986. If John's on here and we can get him promoted, I think it might be every 10 years, but don't quote me on it. They're the guys that
Sure, and obviously I'd love to hear from John, but that's kind of what I was getting. My research showed that it was reviewed back in 1986, and I was like, was that the last time it was looked at?
No.
As we know, we've learned a lot more as a society and a community, and I just and Joe, I'm sure you're sensitive to it. Our town spent, gosh, it was almost $12 million on a PFAS filtration system, and I think the filters cost upwards of $1 million every year, and I just have a hard time approving something, even though if we are doing, putting in it's very, very diluted amount, we're still putting in my opinion, what would be a PFAS chemical into our waterways that we're just going to end up, proverbially shooting ourselves in the foot cost-wise. So
yeah, I mean, I guess it's not PFAS, right? I mean, the state would not allow put PFAS in water. I think the other thing is that, let's say sonar, for instance, right? Sonar is approved for use in drinking water, right? We could treat direct drinking water up to 150 parts per billion. We're targeting, maintaining 10 to 15 parts per billion here, so a fraction of that. So, Percelicor as well can be used in drinking water. Really, the biggest kind of concern with applying it to a drinking water reservoir is the irrigation restriction, right? All these herbicides are really targeted to impact the photosynthesis process in plants in one way or another. So if you were to treat, say, a drinking water reservoir, it's not even the drinking that is of any concern. It's really just, are they going to water plants? Are they going to, irrigate grass, because there's an irrigation restriction affiliated with these, but there's no restrictions on swimming, boating, fishing, specifically to sonar, no drinking water restriction. So, we've established it is not PFAS. I think, we may get some questions from the public here, but John and Josh are standing by. I don't know if you're able to get them on the panel here.
It's been declined a couple times.
I do think, Joe, and respectfully, we do have some difference in opinions. The research I've done, I do believe it is a PFAS chemical. I understand that, the state and the EPA have classified it, but there has been other agencies that do classify it as a PFAS chemical. So.
And I think John John said he did not get an invite to be promoted as a panelist, but he can speak to kind of fluorinated carbon molecule and so on and so forth as well. I think even the only reference we could even find, specific that was even anywhere close regarded firefighters PPE. It was just completely, off the wall, not having to do with water. So,
sometimes Zoom does this, so I've tried 4
Can
times,
can he raise his hand?
and they keep saying declined. So I don't know if that's Zoom. It sounds like it's Zoom because they're
yeah, he's saying
saying they
never
didn't
got
get the
anything.
invite. So sorry
Jen, can
on
you,
that, Josh. I
can
will
you-
try again.
Yeah, he said his hand's raised.
It is raised.
Okay.
If you could make me co-host, I can try too. So I think, and I'm still very much in the process of learning about a lot of this. And one of the things I'd like us to consider is within this notice of intent, thinking about other ways to prevent future invasives at this site. One of which being potentially revegetating some of the buffer around it, dealing with invasives around the body of water itself, and then potentially talking about a station associated with the pond to spray off things that are going to be used in the pond, like kayaks, canoes, paddles, and maybe a detergent that's applicable there that would further help. And those are things that I was hoping to talk about, but I think this conversation's been interesting, and now John has joined us and has some questions I think he'd like to address.
That's why I was promoting the wrong person. Sorry, John.
Yeah, and Ben, we can talk about that either now or offline
Yeah.
or whenever, but happy to assist with that as well.
Sure. So I guess I'll just take the first question first about EPA re-registration. That does occur at a minimum every 15 years. And Massachusetts, their latest review on Procelicor specifically, I believe, was 2018, but they did just go through that whole, they're going through the whole process right now of a new GEIR, I believe. Joe can talk
Correct.
about that.
The draft is out.
As far as some of the new papers that were sent along on Procelicor since 2017, there was a paper, one from 2025 and 2026 that looked at Nile tilapia, exposed to 270 to 3,000 ppb of Procelicor for up to 15 days. And they determined that the 96-hour LC50 for that Nile tilapia was 2,610 ppb, so 261 times higher than the maximum rate allowed for milfoil control. In Massachusetts, just to put that into perspective, the second paper was also on Nile tilapia and looked at concentrations of 2,000 to 4,000 ppb for 1 to 2 week exposures. So again, fairly irrelevant to a milfoil control treatment, which would be 1 to 10 part per billion for about 24 hours. And the last study was kind of along the same lines, wasn't looking at environmentally relevant concentrations. They determined a 24-hour LD50 for mice to be 371 milligrams per kilogram of body weight. So a typical 30-gram mouse would have to drink over 1,115 liters of that treated water in 24 hours to reach that LD50. And then the lowest concentration they looked at was 1/20th of the LD50. So that mouse would have to drink 55 liters of treated water within 24 hours, which would not happen during a milfoil treatment. So that's why it's important to really focus on the EPA's environmental risk assessments and look at environmentally relative concentrations. You wouldn't say it's dangerous to drink a half glass of milk per day because you found data that said it's dangerous to drink 4,000 glasses per day. It's kind of an example there. And then as far as, I think, I don't want to go on too long, but just to address the PFAS comments, there was a paper that came out on this recently, titled, I think I sent that to Joe so you can forward it along. Titled, sorry, I'm looking at my,
A comprehensive review of the regulation of fluorinated pesticide ingredients by the EPA. And it talks about all the different definitions. It talks about the OECD definition that was brought up, and how one fully fluorinated carbon atom, it was talking about Procelicor and how Procelicor is a PFAS on that list. And this paper gets into it in detail and talks about the reasons for different definitions, but basically talks about the OECD definition and how some states, Minnesota was the one that kind of started all this, went beyond that OECD definition by stating that a fully fluorinated carbon means a carbon atom on which all the hydrogen substituents have been replaced by a fluorine. So this includes a single fluorinated atom on a carbon atom, which is what you see in that aromatic ring in Procelicor. But the OECD in their report, they said molecules with this type of feature were expressly highlighted as an example of what should not be designated as a PFAS under its definition. So I'll leave it at that, and Joe has the paper. He can share it with you on PFAS definitions.
Yeah, and I think just one more thing to piggyback on that is, that's obviously a lot to take in, right? It's a lot there, very technical. But I think the bigger picture, right, is that, again, these products go through re-registration in Massachusetts, separate from the EPA, so they go through both. They were just recently looked at when the GEIR was in draft mode, right? So the new draft of the GEIR was literally just put out, I think, on the Environmental Monitor. And obviously there's a lot of attention to PFAS. So obviously this was heavily looked at. Really, they're approved. Everything we're doing is approved. It's a benefit under the Wetlands Protection Act. And I just want to kind of reel that in just a little there.
Well, thank you, Joe, for that. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
And thank you, John, as well.
Commissioner Goodman, did you have anything to add here?
Oh, I got a lot. Let's start. So let's back up a little bit. Do we even know, does this still supply those bogs owned by the guy with the really long, funky name down in Norton?
I believe it does.
Mr. something, I think it's Higginbotham or something. And I know there was, and I don't remember the particulars or what exactly the legal, what it was, whether he had the right to, but I believe he drops the level way down to flood his bogs with this water. So I guess, where do we stand legally on treating it or not treating it? Is it his say? Whatever. So that's question number one. And question 1B of that is, does the fluoridone have any effect on cranberries? The next question or comment I have is, like Nate touched upon it, it seems like, I know Ms. Bennett had spoken about the, doing the manual, but it does seem rather daunting. So I don't like the chemical choice either. I'm kind of with Phil again, because we're touching on the cranberries, on the effect, known or unknown. But what alternative does it leave us? Because if we don't treat, we're going to lose. If we don't treat, we're going to lose the pond. If we treat with manual labor, we're pissing in the wind. We're throwing our town's dollars away, and our town doesn't have any dollars right now. So, we're kind of, our back's kind of up against it. With all due respect to John and the other gentlemen, though, I would say, and anybody who keeps saying the EPA this and that in 1986, and yeah, that's all well and good. And how many years did they say Roundup? Roundup was great too, right? Lots of things were great according to lots of different government agencies, and that's not what I'm talking about. Not making a political discussion of this. What I'm saying is lots of things have been found to be good or bad, and in fact have been the opposite. So I take everything with a grain of salt, but I guess somebody maybe could answer the legal question or the cranberry question first. That would be good. But as far as moving this project along tonight, I just don't see it happening. I see the queue is full, so I'll shut up now. Thank you.
Yeah, I think thanks for that, Mike. Appreciate it. I think just the first thing, I think when Roundup is brought up, I always kind of take a step back, just only because that's not an aquatic pesticide, right? So very, very different overview review process, right? So beyond the EPA, again, Massachusetts, but these are aquatic pesticides, which are far more stringent and strict than anything you'd find on the shelf at Home Depot. You know, they're restricted. So again, apples to oranges, just, you know, it's just, you know, just that. So it kind of just hits me right here, right? Because the Roundup thing is just, again, different apples to oranges. So there's far more things that are looked at as heavily as aquatic pesticides for sure. You know, in terms of the cranberry bog, I guess maybe Jen has a little bit more information as to how far downstream. You know, I mean, there is an irrigation restriction, right, with sonar. You know, typically if it's above 5 parts per billion, there's going to be an irrigation restriction to some extent, depending on what you're irrigating, whether crops or, you know, new turf, established grass, so on and so forth. But if it's, you know, if it's downstream, you know, I don't have any concerns. I know John's worked on probably, you know, 100 of the, you know, kettle ponds down the Cape that have used sonar over the years, you know, down in Carver and Plymouth and those areas that flood cranberry bogs. So, I mean, John, anything to add to that specific to cranberries?
Yeah, there's data out there on Floridone susceptibility, and you wouldn't want to apply Floridone directly to cranberries in their growing season beyond a certain threshold, but the label irrigation language mitigates that risk. So we model downstream, we look at what the concentrations are expected to be and ensure that we can work within those label limitations before putting an application out.
And we can also, you know, we can quantify this through fast test data collection, which is just a fancy word for herbicide residue testing. So we can legitimately test the herbicide residue concentrations, you know, immediately after treatment, a week after treatment. We typically use that to kind of guide our treatments to know exactly how much to, you know, to apply.
Ben, can I ask a real quick question?
Of course.
Joe, real quick, you guys had gone out and checked out New Pond Forest. Do you guys look downstream when you knew there was a stream, you knew there was a dam? Did you ever check to see where that went?
Yeah, I mean, not physically when we were there, but yeah, we use an application called Stream Stats, right? So it looks at watershed data. So yeah, you can look at the watershed, you can look at flow. You know, I wasn't specifically, I guess, admittedly looking for cranberry bogs, right? I don't think those are flagged on our GIS database.
That's important though.
But yeah, of course, we're willing to work with that cranberry owner, make sure it's, you know, there's no irrigation restrictions that are going to impact them. But
and it's a little uncomfortable you missed it. I think, I don't know, with a flowing water source, and it wasn't really brought up. And Mike makes a good point. It's like, you know, chemicals could disturb it. It's interesting.
I see some hands up. Let's go to public comment.
So I'm promoting Kyla. She had her hand up first.
Just as a reminder to everyone giving public comment, please introduce yourself by name and address for the record.
Hi, thank you, Mr. Chair. Kyla Bennett, 2 Chickadee Lane in Easton. I apologize for my dog barking in the background. A couple of things. First of all, DASH is used for larger areas. 18 acres is not a problem at all. We have a case right now, Willand Pond in Dover, New Hampshire. It's 66 acres. DASH is taking care of the whole thing. And the price was actually comparable, a little bit more, but comparable to the pesticide application there. They were going to be using Procelicor. Both Procelicor and Floridone are PFAS. They are chemicals that have one fully fluorinated carbon, which is not only the definition of OECD, but it's also the definition of the state of Massachusetts. I would be interested to know from the people who are here, the applicant, or the consultant, I'm sorry,
Where the
whether the, yeah, the town is the applicant, whether the containers that you use are fluorinated for the pesticide, because that is part of the reason that we are in the PFAS contamination mess that we're in right now in Easton. Was a lot of pesticides are stored in HDPE containers that are fluorinated, and the PFAS, including PFOA, leaches out into the pesticide and then is put into the environment. And I understand that a lot of people think that the dose is the poison argument, and that you're saying, oh, parts per billion, it's so tiny. Well, EPA has said that there is no safe level of certain PFAS. We have over 10,000 PFAS, and we only have toxicity information on about 100 of them. So just because we don't have that information does not mean it's safe. So I would like to hear whether your containers, your plastic containers that the pesticide is contained in are fluorinated. And if so, that's a whole nother can of worms there. But this is a PFAS. PFAS chemistry is extremely complicated. And while it is true that EPA does do additional tests for aquatic pesticides as opposed to land-applied pesticides, it's still the same people doing the tests and doing the risk assessments. And as Mr. Goodman pointed out, we have all sorts of pesticides that have passed EPA, same people, again, who do the aquatic stuff as they do the land stuff. And that's atrazine, Roundup, dicamba, you know, these pesticides that are known to cause cancer and Parkinson's disease and all sorts of things, and they are continually approved by EPA and by the state of Massachusetts. Just because it's legal does not mean it's safe. These are PFAS. They are going, you're planning to put them in a pond that has a stream going directly into our zone 2, like directly into our zone 2 for our wells. The other, Philip was right. I'm sorry, is it Vesio? I'm not sure how to pronounce your name, Mr. Vesio.
That's correct. Thank you.
Said that, you know, we spend $1 million a year replacing our filters. We do. And when I said PFAS chemistry is complex, it is, because they degrade and recombine and form other PFAS. And I don't know if the fluoridone or the Procellacor are precursors to the more dangerous PFAS like PFOA and PFOS, which are, there's no safe level of. So they are regulated in the parts per quadrillion. So parts per billion does not make me feel comfortable. So my points, I'm not gonna keep on going. I submitted written comments to you, but the bottom line is this: these are PFAS. PFAS are dangerous. We don't know the toxicity information for all of them. This is going directly into our drinking water supply. DASH is consistently done on ponds much bigger than this one. And it was said that it was a gray area for the cost. I think it behooves the commission to get an actual estimate of cost for doing DASH on New Pond, whether it's from this company or another company like the one I gave you that's doing the one in New Hampshire for pretty cheap money. I think it is worth it. And I think just because something is approved by the EPA and Mass DEP does not mean that it's good for us. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, Dr. Bennett. I guess I'll speak to the DASH just briefly, and then I'll let John talk about, you know, the PFAS, the containers, so on and so forth. Just with the DASH, I think I'd be curious to know, you know, the density and the percent cover, right? I mean, that becomes extremely important. So, I mean, we've done DASH on water bodies that are hundreds of acres, right? But it's a small pilot infestation, right? So, you know, I would just urge the commission to look at, you know, the Guide to Aquatic Plant Management, which is there as a resource for these exact situations as a supplement to, you know, the Wetlands Protection Act, right? I mean, specifically in that guide, it says DASH is meant for small localized infestations of invasive aquatic plants, early detection / rapid response situations, follow-up treatment after large-scale management efforts, which is really the situation here, or protection of high-value areas such as swimming beaches, boat launches, docks, and sensitive habitat areas. So, you know, small areas within a large water body or pilot infestations in a large water body. I've most definitely seen DASH completed in hundreds of acres of water bodies in New Hampshire, but what's being left out in that context is the density and the percent cover. So, yeah, I mean, we do DASH. Again, I have no preference. We included it because it's absolutely a strategy here, just not at the densities and percent cover that, New Pond experiences now. So that's it on DASH. I'll throw it over to John to just touch on the PFAS and the containers.
Or thanks, Joe. Yeah, CPRO does not use HPDE containers specifically for that reason, to avoid leaching of PFAS into the pesticide. That was a lesson learned, I think, in the insecticide sector. And then as far as PFAS, it's a group of chemicals. There's a lot of them out there. It all depends what your definition is. So the EPA doesn't define these two molecules as PFAS. Massachusetts does not. The OECD, that was interesting. As far as Procelicor goes, they explicitly note in their reports that a single fluorine attached to a carbon may fall into that definition, but it shouldn't be used to ban products that have legitimate uses widely. Just like that.
Thank you. Let's move to our next public comment. Just keep this going.
Promoting Andrew and then Denise.
Hey, y'all can hear me?
We can hear you.
All right, so I did a quick back of the envelope calculation based on what Mr. I apologize for butchering your last name, Mr. Honorato.
Perfect.
Said of $3,000 per quarter acre, and then Ms. Carlino said 18 acres. I'm assuming that's the size of the pond, of New Pond. Is that correct? 18 acres?
Correct.
Okay. So it comes out to $216,000. Okay. I've done enough projects with contractors. I'm not dissing anybody. I'm just saying reality. I bumped it up to $250,000. Okay. So $250,000 to do DASH on New Pond. I have a strong enough background in science in general, in human health more specifically, and just also in basic biology to understand that we are going to fragment some of these things when they get pulled up, and so they're going to grow again. So we're really looking at having to do DASH repeatedly, okay? So $250,000 a year for, 5-7 years, okay? All of this by way of saying, I live on the pond. I am drinking a glass of water right now that came from my well, which is 200 feet, 250 feet from the edge of the pond, okay? I live at One New Pond Way, by the way. I'm sorry, I forgot to lead in with that.
Thank you.
So I am all for spending the town's money to not put chemicals in the pond. I am totally cool with that. You all want to pony up $250,000 a year to keep this under control and not me run the risk of having chemicals in my water. I think that's great. Don't get me wrong, but I also recognize the reality of the situation. These things are going to fragment. It's going to be almost impossible using DASH alone to get them out. So as members of the Conservation Commission, what it seems to me as simply a taxpayer is that you guys have to make a decision about how to best spend our money. And our options are threefold. We can do nothing, and in 30, 40, 50 years, the pond is gone. That's option A. That has the benefit of not costing anything, but it's also not exactly preserving a recreational and conservation space. You know, I mean, that's just that. Then we have looking at using a combination of the chemical methods, doing it judiciously, trying to, you know, control for as much as we can control for, and then using dash, or we can just straight up do dash and do it every single year. And, you know, the town comes up with 250 grand, plus, you know, there's inflation and all of that, going up every year. And for me as a taxpayer, I want to see the town make a wise decision. And so I just wanted to finish by making a statement just on, we can all go out and find papers that show if, you know, there's this amount or that amount or something like that, it shows bad things. It was brought up that if a mouse drinks some bizarre number of, you know, cups of water or whatever, he's going to have a bad day. One thing to keep in mind, as somebody, I worked in the pharmaceutical industry, we would have to figure out on any kind of medication, any kind of pharmaceutical came up with, we had to figure out the amount that would kill you, even if you were never going to approach that amount. Okay, you just had to come up with this. You had to. Somebody was using the phrase LD 50, and that's the lethal dose. You have to give that number, which means you have to figure it out. So yeah, some mice had a bad day. And you calculate that out, but that doesn't mean that's the dose you're giving. That means that's the dose that if you gave that, they would die. And oftentimes the actual administered amount is way less. So I just ask people to kind of, you know, think about that when you're going and reading these papers, is what was the purpose of the paper? Why was it being published? Because as anybody in science knows, publish or perish. You're gonna, whatever data you create, you're gonna put out there, and you'll let that go on. But you know, ultimately, I think still, as somebody who lives next to the pond with a well, I'm okay going the route where we do the initial herbicide, aquatic herbicide treatment. You know, I respect other people's thoughts on this, but I do feel like I have a little bit more skin in the game. You know, I'm not 2 miles away, 1 mile away, 3 miles away with a cranberry bog. I'm 200 feet with a well. And I'm okay with it. And I would hope that that would count for something. Thank you guys very much.
Andrew, I just want to note that whatever we do here still has to go before town meeting to be funded.
Well, and that's my concern, is that, so we can sit here, I mean, I think everybody's going to be in agreement. Yeah, let's pull those suckers out by hand, you know? I mean, that's way better than using an herbicide. But when you start going to a town that just got hit with, you know, that giant public works department building and all of this other stuff, and you're like, hey, we'd also like $250,000 a year for the next 7 or 8 years. People are going to say no, and then we're going to be back to not doing anything. You know, so I definitely understand. Thank you, because I don't always get how all this stuff works, but I understand it has to go to a town meeting. I'd just like us to present a realistic plan as opposed to something that people are going to just vote down. And then we're back to square one.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next is Denise.
Denise, just again as a reminder, please introduce yourself by name and address for the record.
It says declined. I'm just going to try again. Okay. Okay, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Oh, this is taxing just to get on to be heard. This is Denise Higgins for New Pond Way. I also am a resident. I am directly on the pond.
have resided here for 41 years, so I have a little bit of institutional knowledge as well. And I do want to clear up the concern about the cranberries. At one point in time, the cranberry grower did in fact have utilize the dam for its water use. I was so busy looking for the documentation because I have it somewhere here. I was hoping it was in electronic format that I could just send it to Jen Carlino, but I don't. But it is memorialized, and you do have it on record. And I believe it was Marty Lincoln who did the determination. And it was done at the time that the dam was reinforced, when the major work was being done at that point. Went to record and said that the cranberry growers no longer had access to the dam, to its water level or the water itself. So I just wanted to clear that up. The cranberry growers have since utilized a private source of water, and they divert their water and their configuration differently. So the water that comes from New Pond does not directly affect those cranberry growers. But that is on record, and we can find it because that has been done. I have a question. I'm not sure who can answer this. Is there a possibility that there is a hybrid of the dash and chemical treatment? Can anyone answer that with a quick yes or no?
So I think functionally we are, one of the things that's being talked about is a single herbicide treatment and then follow-up treatment with dash. But one of the things that we can do, because we're not limited in our ability to approve a notice of intent or deny the notice of intent in these circumstances, is we could do a notice of intent approved for the herbicide use, a notice of intent approved for dash, or a configuration related thereto.
Okay. One of my concerns is watching the pond. In 41 years, things have been gradual except for the last few years, and now it's exponential. I'm taking pictures now on almost a weekly basis, and it's truly mind-blowing to see what's happening with the pond. I actually have firsthand experience. I actually live on a pond, Thompson Lake in Oxford, Maine, that utilizes the DASH program, so I have firsthand knowledge with that. It's a long process. It's labor intensive. And I'm wondering if we could get with all due respect, the EPA did review the sonar, the herbicide in November of 2025. So I am going to believe that EPA in some way, shape, is taking a look at some of these chemicals in terms of its effect. And so I'm going to believe that I'm going to put my faith in the EPA for this for a second, okay? And I'm wondering, as a boost, if we can do a treatment to mitigate what's happening in the pond so that we can get a handle on it to then go to DASH, is what I'm trying to say. I don't have an answer to all of this. It's why I'm looking to you for some of our expert guidance, because I do live on the pond and I do drink the water here, and we are and we utilize we do utilize the water, the underground water. So I am concerned about this. I guess what I want to do in closing is to say, we really need you to take a look at what is happening here on New Pond, because before too long, we're going to lose the pond, and then it's going to be an expense that we can't bring back. So thank you for that time.
Thank you, Denise. Joe, to the extent you can, could you talk about how you can use the herbicide treatment and DASH in conjunction with one another?
Yeah, so I mean, and Denise, that was fantastic. You know, I think it's exactly as we're proposing it, right? We've narrowed down the available tools that are approved for use in this situation and applicable to gain control of these awful species, right? We've narrowed it down to really two techniques, herbicides and DASH. So really, I mean, I'm not spending the town's money, right? So ultimately what we'd be left with if the commission chooses to approve this project is tools in the tool bag consisting of those techniques, right? And so at any point we can use dash, we can use herbicides, maybe a conjunction of the two. Generally speaking though, right, if you've treated, now you're kind of trying to pull half dead plant material, right, or invasive plant material. So but they can be used in conjunction with each other, right? And that's exactly how we're proposing it. Is at this point, based on our survey, you know, as Denise described it, it is, I mean, it is awful out there. It is absolutely dense and covered wall to wall, varying densities, but just overwhelmingly dense, way past the point of dash as it sits now, right? So if we can get it under control through herbicides, with a systemic herbicide down into the roots, see far less regrowth. Now we can manage it with tools like dash. But again, even dash is not a silver bullet, right? It's fragmenting. You're getting some of the root material, but generally speaking, this is maintenance, right? And over the course of multi-years of maintenance, you know, it'll be guided by surveys first and foremost. Let's do surveys. We present our information to, you know, the commission, right? So, you know, some towns will say, hey, do a survey, do a work plan. And then at that point, we make recommendations and you guys can decide how to allocate funds within your approved budgets and so on and so forth. So it's kind of an annual collaboration between the commission and the contractor and the public, right? But the more tools you have in the tool bag, the more you can choose the right one or the right ones. The only kind of caveat to that, just really quickly, is that, you know, something like sonar, right? So this treatment we're proposing to do kind of upfront to gain the grasp on it. You know, it's really recommended at early onset growth, so kind of very early in the season based on previous surveys. And really that's because these target plants are very susceptible to very low concentrations of fluoridone at that point. We can kind of growth regulate all that biomass, really negate, you know, large biomass die-offs and so on and so forth. And we're doing that very early in the season before a lot of the native pondweeds have started to grow. So now those native pondweeds, even in the season of treatment, have a chance to survive. So, you know, surveys guide everything, but in this initial year, I think we use the existing survey data on, you know, using the approach we've recommended.
Can I just ask one follow-up question? Does dash, I have to believe that dash is a combination of the hand pulling, vacuuming, bagging, but it also must include the benthic mat, the matting and the rebar and the weighting. Is that a two-part, or are we talking about dash strictly with the divers hand pulling?
Yeah, so great question. Two different techniques, right? Well, actually three, right? You have the diver hand pulling, which is really in shallow areas where they go down, they hand pull, put it in a burlap bag, haul it off. You have dash where they dive down, pull the material, it gets sucked up into a tube, dewaters into bags. Then you have benthic mats, which is that third technique. So we didn't propose that really because of the lack of selectivity, right? It strips sunlight and it takes away sunlight for all vegetation. So there's absolutely no selectivity. It's going to kill everything underneath that mat. So the only real place it's applicable is, you know, a swimming pool, which none of us want to create, or a, you know, a very small like town beach area, right, where you're afraid of kids getting caught up in weeds and you just want to control, you know, every plant within a very small area. So we didn't propose that in this situation, given that we want to, you know, really control the invasives as selectively as possible while allowing the natives to really recolonize after they've been outcompeted for many years by these awful invasive species.
Thank you. I think we have one more person with their hand up for public comment.
Correct. Promoting Iris.
Iris, just a reminder, please introduce yourself by name and address for the record.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, yeah, hi, this is Iris Papagno. I live at 2 New Pond Way. I have been here over 30 years, and I just wanted to also say, yes, the pond has changed so fast over the last 2, 3 years, just like Denise Higgins said. And the concern really is that something needs to be done as fast as possible. If it continues at this rate, I think we will lose the pond, partial areas of this very, very fast. I appreciate everyone's concern with the chemicals, of course, and everyone's nervous about that. But I think the best course here is, to use the herbicides and then use the dash as a follow-up. And my well is right here, and we are very close to the pond. But cost restrictions, and there's some risk in always life, and I think I trust the EPA in Massachusetts. Is it always perfect? No, but I just want to say I'm in support of this, and I hope that this can move forward.
Thank you. So, in light of all the public comment, all the information that we've received, I think that I would like more information on Dash and to extend this conversation a little bit. I think some of our public comment has sort of hit the nail on the head with what we're dealing with, right? Like politically, we're in a situation where the only reason that we were able to test these ponds, even for invasives, was because we got grant funding. We have an opportunity to put something before town meeting to fund invasive species management. And I would like to know, as close as we can to the dollar, what we're putting before them in options, not even just for New Pond, but because this was at least conceptually supposed to be a project that started our process of treating invasives across waterways in town. I think the comments and concerns that have been raised about the herbicide is, I think it's great information to have, and I think I'm in support of everyone who's voiced it, that, as I think everyone in the meeting for the most part has said, if we can use Dash, it's a preferred method. But let's know whether or not we can use Dash before we make a decision. And I think it would also be helpful to evaluate the site a little bit more for how we can manage invasives moving forward. And I think that includes revegetating areas around the pond to support water quality, and potentially considering some options to prevent the spread of invasives back to it. One of the primary routes is, and has been for a long time, kayaks, canoes, recreational folks coming in and out, which we want to incentivize and support, but also make sure it doesn't turn into this problem again in the event we're able to treat this. So my thought is that we continue this to the next meeting, potentially have a site visit there, and do public notice of the site visit so that abutters and interested parties can join us and continue the discussion further. I'm open to other opinions. I'm open to votes.
Well, what's our resolution here?
I think I'm just looking for input as to whether or not the rest of the commission agrees that we need some more information on Dash so that we know what we're actually proposing.
Yeah, I mean, more information. It sounds like everyone needs more information. I mean, I am sort of the mind of our, the public comment people, and that, I think there's what everyone wants, and there's maybe the reality of where the pond's going versus what we can do. So, but more information is always good.
Yeah, I agree with that. And then hearing the folks that live on or near the pond, I guess I didn't realize how bad it was. So I'm going to make it a point to get out there and take a look and try to see. But I think more information would be extremely helpful. And maybe at our next meeting on the 29th, I believe we could have a resolution in hand.
But then again, like, but I don't need more of the same information. So if we're looking for new
Great point.
that's
Great
fine. But we just also received a lot of information. So if it's just going to be another meeting of the same information, then we should just decide now. I think
I need to know what Dash will actually cost here and whether or not it can be done.
I would agree. I think also the site visit with all of us going would be beneficial, especially to see the bank and to see what all those other steps are. I mean, it's not just internally within this pond. It's It's a whole lot going on there. This is like, I mean, it's complete restoration, so.
I think I'm in concurrence with all of those things. But I think we also continued a lot of things from this agenda to the June agenda, which is now quite full. I'd
It's
like
not
to see a separate meeting just for this only. And yeah, my schedule is just as slammed as everybody else's, but I really think it's an important issue. The taxpayers are counting on us. I'm speaking only for myself. I can't speak for my fellow commissioners, but I have had a lot of people asking me about this and what should they do? How are they going to vote? What's going on? What's it all about? So I really think a separate meeting just for this and the site walk we need.
So, Joe, is it possible to do opinion of probable cost for both the preferred method and just not the preferred, the proposed method of herbicide and dash, and a separate opinion of probable cost just for dash?
Yes, absolutely. And I guess just one point, and let me just say I respect the commission's decision regardless, right? Whether you continue, approve, so on and so forth. I guess my question is, are we dealing with, hey, I'm not sure if this project meets the requirements of the Wetlands Protection Act, right? And I'm not to the point where I can vote, yes, this meets the requirements of the act, or is it more about cost, right? Because I guess in my mind, I'm like, well, the town is the applicant, right? So nobody can do anything because you hold that permit, right? You are the applicant. So theoretically, right, by approving, you'd say, yes, this meets the requirements of the act. I've gotten enough information to make that decision. And now the question becomes, well, we've got tools in the tool bag that include treatment, includes dash, combination of the two. We can use them based on surveys. We can make site visits. We can get quotes. We can do all these things. So now it's more about, what do we do to go in front of town meeting to ask for it, and what is that dollar amount, and what's the approach? But we still have all the tools that we approved, and we may never use a treatment, right? But we have it as a tool because it meets the requirements of the Wetlands Protection Act. So I guess I throw that out there. I don't care either way. We could absolutely do a site visit, get order of magnitudes, costs for various techniques, but theoretically, I still think it meets the guidelines of the Wetlands Protection Act. It's great to have tools whether you use them or not. It definitely meets the requirements of the act. And so you may choose to never treat, make a site visit, determine you want to go the dash route. Maybe you try dash, it doesn't work out, so you pivot back to herbicides at that point. But at that point, it's still a tool in the tool bag because it was part of that approved order of conditions. That's kind of how I see it, from a cost versus separating the regulatory part from the actual costing, and what do you go with,
The part of my thought is, I think we ought to consider expanding the scope of the notice of intent itself to include managing invasives that are outside of the pond and around the perimeter of the pond for water quality, and then additionally the invasive management plan.
So we did, yeah. I mean, we did, not to cut you off. So purple loosestrife is on there. Same thing, right? Hand pulling is the preferred approach for the purple loosestrife. I think we'd prefer to just hand pull that purple loosestrife, carefully bag it, and remove it from the site. Sometimes that doesn't work. I think that would be the default just based on those densities. But that was the only invasive that was documented around the shoreline. But yeah, absolutely right. There's CD3, boat washing stations we can discuss. I think signage at kayak launches is just a cheap, for $100 you can get some signs. You can obtain them from DCR. So there's so many things that you can do, to kind of limit introduction of new species and things like that, for sure. And we're happy to chat about those as well.
So we may actually be talking about something just slightly different. We had recently done a permit to remove burning bush and other invasives on conservation property near the pond. And maybe this is an expansion of this permit application to allow abutters around the pond to be able to remove those invasive species and then do replanting as well. So it's separate from what we've asked you to do. It's more of an expansion for the whole pond, for the abutters as well, just to save a little time on permitting for those type of projects. Okay, so we have some information that we're asking for from Water and Wetland. Do you want to try to set a site inspection time now while we're all here?
I think that makes sense.
Okay. Does a Monday evening work for folks?
Monday evenings generally work for me. I assume they do for other members of the commission, just as a result of sort of where we are.
I can do most Mondays.
I
can do every Monday except for June 22nd.
I can't do any of the next 2 Mondays.
So your choices are the 15th or the 22nd to do that inspection before the meeting of the 29th.
Sorry, the 15th, I won't.
Does anyone have any availability on Thursdays?
I'm out.
I could probably do.
I'm a little stuck on Thursdays.
Man, I coach the American Legion baseball team, so you're just hitting all the game nights. Sorry.
Yeah, Thursday's bad for most everybody, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
To make me real popular, how about a Friday night?
Friday night works best for me.
Could make Friday work.
Could probably make it work.
Yeah, on the date, yeah, probably can make it work.
So this Friday is too short. The following Friday is Juneteenth, which so that brings us to, hold on.
12, 19, or 26. Oh, the 26th will be World Cup. Well, never mind. It won't matter for any of you. I have my eye on all the World Cup dates, so I work from home.
I'm not doing well here. I got to bleep.
I'm not driving through Foxborough then.
I can't do the 26th.
Yeah, Fridays are a no-go on my end too. My wife works 12-hour shifts every Friday, so I get the kiddos.
Well, we're definitely not all making this site visit. So
I think that's what we've sort of arrived at here.
All right, so it was good to try to do it while we were all together, but instead of using more the meeting time, we can send out a doodle poll and try to organize at least a couple of you. Then I guess the question for you is, do you need Water and Wetland present, or do you want to just meet on your own?
I kind of need that number more than anything that that the chair alluded to, to make that true, to make that cost benefit analysis, really. We're going to harden that number up. I mean, it doesn't have to be an exact number, but right now we just have a guesstimate of 18 acres.
They don't need to be there for that number to get that number. So I guess maybe we don't need them there.
I would agree that although your presence would be helpful, I don't think we need you there.
Trying to save you some driving time.
Yeah, appreciate it. Yeah, and we'll get quotes, and I think on the dash, admittedly, it's going to be, hey, based on the densities and percent cover, right? Everything we talked about, we would recommend budgeting for X amount of days of dash to try to make a substantial impact on this infestation. Like that's the way at this dollar amount. I mean, we could put that in a formal quote, right? But it comes down to that cost per day.
That's helpful.
So.
All right, so I'm going to make a motion unless anyone makes one before me. Motion to continue 581 Foundry Street to the 6/29/26 meeting of the Easton Conservation Commission.
Second.
Who was my second?
Vecchio second.
Thank you. Carol motion, Vecchio second. Roll call vote. Carol, aye.
Rossman, aye.
Goodman, aye.
Beatty, aye.
Vecchio, aye.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks all.
Up next is 8 Washington Street.
Caroline is joining. And Eric.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. We can see you.
Correct. I didn't know I had a palm tree background. For the record, my name is Caroline Reese from Merrill Engineers and Land Surveyors. I am here tonight representing the applicant, Deepak Wadhwa, who is also on the phone or on the Zoom and may choose to participate for a project at 8 Washington Street, Easton. And I'll try to give a very brief overview. I know it's getting late. We originally presented this project several months ago. We had, and quite honestly, we haven't done much work since. Would you like me to share the screen and familiarize you with it?
Please.
I mean, I shouldn't say we haven't done much work. If you can, I don't have a share option. We haven't done changes to the design. I don't see a share option, share screen.
It should be on the toolbar at the bottom of the screen or
Yeah,
possibly at the
yeah,
top of the
it
screen.
usually is, but
If you click more, it'll pop up as
yeah.
share. No?
Nope, I'm in there. It's not in my more. Ah, it just popped up. Okay, so I'm a little slow. I apologize for that. Okay, so here is the site. Can everyone see my site plan?
If you zoom in a little bit, that would be helpful.
Okay, here we go. Okay, so just to re-familiarize you with this project, we're located on 8 Washington Street. The site is currently developed with a single-family home, driveway, proposed septic, and accessory features. The applicant would like to develop the rear portion of the lot as an early child care facility. Moved into planning, and that entails a driveway that provides access from Washington Street, 15 feet wide, a parking area with a minimum parking requirement of 14 spaces and has to be large enough to provide emergency vehicle egress, access, and turning radii. There's a 4,000 square foot childhood center here and playgrounds on the rear side and the left side of the structure in a nutshell. For resource areas on site, we have an isolated vegetated wetland located primarily on this lot in the center of the lot. And there are also bordering vegetated wetlands that were flagged off site. Their buffers extend onto the property. Since we first presented in December, there was some time taken to determine and re-examine whether or not the isolated vegetated wetland contained a vernal pool. And I believe, Jen, please correct me if I misspeak, that I think you did some site visits or investigations and determined that is not the case. And so once we did that, we have also done calculations to determine whether the IVW is isolated land subject to flooding. I've submitted those. I can walk through them. That was one thing, or I can summarize the results that our calculations determines that although the basin is closed and large enough to serve as an ILSF, if I may, that the 1 year rainfall does not provide enough volume to qualify as an ILSF. And I don't know if Jen's had a chance to review or agree, or if the commission. I did get a letter from the peer reviewer today. I apologize. I had site visits. I haven't gone through the letter thoroughly, and I'll take a bit to respond to it. But I did note that the peer reviewer agreed with that assessment. I can walk through that in more detail. So I guess today I received this letter and I appreciate there's some good points in it that we have to go back and address. And as I see it on a cursory review, we have to refine the stormwater and gather more stormwater data, primarily another test pit in the location of the infiltration system, which I should have pointed out is currently located below the paved parking area. So I do believe we'll need some time to address these comments, and probably I'll begin with site work for test pit data. And I believe the recommendation was for the agent to be on site to gather more test pit data. I think with more test pit data, we can address a lot of these other issues as I see in the peer review report. So I guess with that, I would like to open up to like maybe questions or overall comments on the site. We have not proposed any plantings. This site is restricted to meet access requirements, planning requirements for parking, and to develop the site as needed for a early childhood center. We're pretty much developing most of the site outside the 50-foot buffer. You can see the 50-foot buffer is here. The road comes up and curls around. The area is developed. The 50-foot buffer is here as well. So we've kind of laid it out in the area that's available outside of the 50. But I'd like to turn it over for questions you may have or just some general impressions at this point. What I'd like to see as we address the peer reviewers' comments.
Jen, do you have any staff comment here?
Yeah, tonight was just to review the ILSF and then ask Eric to give just a brief summary of his stormwater comments for the peer review letter.
Oh, I'm sorry. Great.
Sure. Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Please.
Eric Dias, Registered Professional Engineer, Strong Point Engineering. I am doing the peer review on this project. We did issue a letter on this earlier today. We had gotten the ILSF calcs that were referenced. I think it was either Thursday or Friday of last week. So we were able to review those. And Ms. Reese is right. We didn't take any issue with those calculations, but we do defer to Jen on the delineation of the boundary. With regard to stormwater, we had a number of comments, a lot of them string together, which is typical, primarily regarding test pits. As Ms. Reese said, there is only one test pit located in the footprint of the infiltration basin, which is the primary means of attenuation for this project. But technically, I think under the bylaw, we need at least two. But one thing that we did notice, there are test pits, as you'll see on the plan, kind of scattered throughout this site. And all of the test pit results return the same textural class, but give a perk rate anywhere from 2 minutes an inch to 49 minutes an inch. That's a very big difference. When we design stormwater, we're not allowed to design based on perk rates, but we design based on established Rawls rates associated with that textural class. Sometimes when you have soils that are very compact in place, they don't perform as efficiently as the Rawls rates would suggest, meaning that they basically infiltrate much slower. So seeing such a big discrepancy in the perk test information led us to say, gee, maybe we should recommend getting a little bit more sophisticated data. So we are recommending that they consider doing some more in situ permeability testing, such as a double ring infiltrometer, which is something that we've recommended and used in the past when we have these type of disparities. They give us a much better indication of what we're dealing with. So obviously, you know, it's not necessarily a regulatory requirement. It is.
No, it is.
It leans more on the side of a best practices requirement. I will defer to the applicant team, but if we can't get something a little more definitive through the test pits in that specific location, I would strongly lean towards some more sophisticated testing like that, just to really give us a sense of what we're up against. And then the other big ticket item from the peer review is that based on this design, of the system is within 2 feet of the seasonal high groundwater table, which means that a groundwater mounding analysis is required. That can sometimes be a problem, and that is also going to tie right into the infiltration rates and be directly influenced by those. So, you know, doing those now would be sort of putting the cart before the horse. So I to Ms. Reese's point, I think, you know, starting with a little bit more field work out there to answer some of these questions is probably the right move.
I'm just going to throw out the requirement for the number of test pits per stormwater area is in the DEP stormwater handbook. It's not in the bylaw. It's DEP.
You are right. It is the handbook. And if I, off the top of my head, I think it's 1 per 5,000 square feet.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
I misspoke. It is the state, not the local.
Thank you.
Okay. Since the letter came out today, that's pretty much all we were hoping to accomplish tonight at the meeting, just to go over ILSF. That it doesn't hold enough water, so it is not technically ILSF under the state law, and we have the boundary here, and then just to go over the high-level comments from the stormwater review.
Yeah, we'll work through those.
Yeah,
I appreciate
Caroline,
it.
will you have enough time to review that and provide the documents a week before the meeting on the 29th, or would you rather continue to the July meeting? And
I'd rather continue. I think if we have to schedule test pits, we have to coordinate with you or any of the commission. That's going to take a little bit, and then to thoroughly address the comments, I believe. And then I think if understand what Mr. Diaz said is that you know, once we get the test pit data, I think that will help us tackle a lot of the other comments. So I think it's going to be a stepped approach regarding soil type, regarding mounding analysis, which will affect the design.
And witnessing the soil testing would be someone from Eric's office.
Oh, fantastic. Okay.
Yeah, not me. I don't, that wouldn't be, it'd be the peer reviewer.
Okay.
But we can
So we can coordinate directly?
Yeah, you just keep me in the loop and an email is.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, I was just kind of wondering, if you don't mind, there any other general comments upon what's proposed here? And then perhaps, I don't know if the applicant would like to raise his hand or add anything.
Just be whatever was in the initial staff report.
Okay.
Any public comment here for 286 Turnpike Street?
Oh, 8 Washington. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No problem.
8 Washington. Any public comment here for 8 Washington Street?
Nope.
Seeing none, motion to continue 8 Washington Street to the July meeting of the Conservation Commission.
Crossman second.
Carol motion, Crossman second, roll call vote, Carol I.
Crossman aye.
Goodman, aye.
Beatty, aye.
Vecchio, aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Up next is request for amendment, 286 Turnpike Street.
Good evening.
Welcome
again.
back, Scott.
Welcome back. I'm going to share my screen. Let's see. Also don't see that share screen option.
So I think it was hiding under more, which is the 3 dots at the bottom of the bar. And if you click that, you should see share at the top.
I had it before. Oh, there we go.
All right, you're up.
Very good. So for the record, my name is Scott Rogers from JK Home Engineering. I believe with me tonight would be Nick Marioni. He's on the project team as well. This is going to be a request for an amendment to existing order of conditions. And this property is number 286 Turnpike Street. I'm showing you the master plan right now. So the L-shaped building in the rear, that was phase one, that was probably built back in, I'm going to say 2017 or so. Phase two is the area kind of in the front of the site. That's under construction currently. So with this request, some of the things that we're doing behind that phase two building, what was previously approved by both conservation and by planning and zoning board was a paved area behind that building. That area will now be basically pervious. That'll be a combination of grass and some mulch areas with some screen plantings. So that's area number one. That's approximately about almost 4,000 square feet of impervious material that'll be removed from the design. And then the second area is in the front of that proposed building on the left-hand side, if you will. You can see that green sort of rectangle, if you will. So we're removing some parking spaces over there. We're adding some more green space over there. Interestingly enough, we're actually going to be increasing the parking count, but we are going to be decreasing the amount of pavement. And it's basically based on the fact that that big parking area over by Turnpike Street is kind of a wide area. So we added some parking spaces in the middle of that parking area, if you will. So with this project as well, let me go to the next sheet. We are proposing to add in a small maintenance building, which is 40 by 60 feet, which you can see located in this area here. So of that 2,400 square foot building, only about 1,800 square feet of that is new impervious, because that building will be placed on partial pavement areas. You can kind of see the gray area underneath that proposed building where that pavement area is. The other thing that's going to be happening with this proposed amendment is you can see the topography in the triangular shape of the rear of that maintenance building. So we are going to be filling in a portion of that infiltration or that stormwater basin. We did some calculations to quantify that. So we're basically filling in about a little less than 900 cubic feet, 883 cubic feet to be exact. So in order to mitigate that, we need to get that volume of stormwater area back. So on the south side, you can see the hatched area there. We're basically going to be increasing that basin. It's over 2,200 cubic feet that we're going to be basically excavating that out. And the area to the south of that is the area that was previously approved by the commission and the planning and zoning board for mitigation to basically increase that basin in there. So, and also with this project, we are proposing some landscaping improvements. So we have met with the abutters to the south. They've been active, and we've met with them and talked about the improvements that we're making to the landscape plan. So there'll be some combination of white pine and spruce trees that'll be planted along the back of that proposed phase two building. And with that, I'd like to answer any questions you may have about the project.
So the new proposed building is sort of existing on the lip of the existing or proposed infiltration basin.
Correct. Yep.
How is that going to impact the infiltration basin?
It certainly is. It's going to impact it as far as the volume, but that volume is being compensated almost 3 times. So the fact that we're losing some volume from that pond, we'll be getting that back by the cut that we're doing. Did I answer the question?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm not sure that is really an amendment, though. That's not within the scope of the original permit. That seems more like it requires a separate permit. for the maintenance building. For the other portions that you're talking about, that is part of the original permit, and would be viewed as an amendment. That I don't know about the building.
With all due respect, we did meet with town staff about this project back in January, and we were told that this could be done through an amendment. So that's why we're before you tonight. Otherwise, we would have done, a different way.
Mr. Dias has his hand up. He's been promoted to panel, so I'll allow him to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I did the original peer review on this, and Jen has asked me to take a look and put a scope on this one as well. And as I'm looking these over, I've got the prior approved set of plans up next to them, and I'm noticing that there's a few things that seem to be different. For example, on the approved set of plans, there is a rain garden proposed along Turnpike Street, between Turnpike Street and the parking area to the left of the building, and I don't see that on this set of plans. Is that being removed, or is that just not shown here?
It's not being removed. It's still part of the proposal.
It's still part of the proposal, just not shown on these plans. And it looks like there's also we spent a lot of time talking about a swale that would be going into the left-hand side of where we have the maintenance building proposed now. Are those features still proposed as well?
So the roof runoff for the phase 2 building will now be handled through piping, and you can see, let me go to the other plan here. There will be a swale, a flared end section with riprap and a sod swale that'll run parallel to the lot line behind the maintenance building. So you are correct.
Okay. Those are just two things that jumped out to me quickly. I just wanted to make sure I was understanding it before I go through fully scoping things. Thank you.
As proposed, the additional structure feels that it should be a separate notice of intent to me. But I'd like to hear from other members of the commission, questions, comments.
And I kind of piggyback on that, Ben. I agree. I think it should be separate. I mean, it's pretty large.
Yeah, I agree with that as well.
I would disagree, only that yeah, I get it, separate building, separate permit, but on the other hand, all the engineering is here right in front of us. So I guess my question would be, if staff met with him in January and said it could be done, then I understand why he would do it this way.
I mean, I figure he would have done the separate one if he was told that that's what he was supposed to do. So I don't know why.
I'd have to review the notes, because what is not just, and I don't mean for just J.K. Holmgren, but frequently I'm asked something in the beginning, what type of permit should I do?
Oh yeah.
And it's not always what's shown on the plan. So
yeah,
I'd have to review my notes for that particular instance. But
yeah, I think things change. I would definitely agree with that. And things change, from the field and the drawing board and all that. But again, if doing the separate filing for this it's not going to give me any new information that I don't have right now at this moment in time. So,
well, we're also, we are talking about what I think is fair to say is a modest increase in impervious surface across the project. And we are in the process of, I think we got to do some peer review on it, because there was so much peer review done in the initial approval. Yeah.
So what exactly, Mr. Chair, do you want peer reviewed? I'm not, I guess, arguing the point, more so I always want to be careful with peer review because it's kind of like, it's easy to say peer review, but we're spending someone's money. So, I always want to just be cognizant of the fact that we're spending someone else's money or telling them to do that as a condition of the project.
Well, we're saying
So-
peer review is needed because they're changing a number of components of the stormwater system. So the new components need to be reviewed to make sure they're in compliance with the stormwater requirements of Wetland Protection Act and the DEP Stormwater Handbook.
Can I interject for a second?
Please.
So I respect everyone's opinions of what they said so far, but clearly what we're doing here is we're improving green space. So if this was designed and approved before with a stormwater manual and a report, but now we're actually increasing green space, clearly it's an improvement, and what's going on with the stormwater is better. So I don't
think that you're improving the increasing green space when you're adding a whole other building to it.
Right, but if you read through the calculations in the narrative, we're actually still increasing green space from what was proposed.
Do you have that figure offhand?
Yeah, so the area phase 1 behind the building, the green space is, hold on one second. It's 3996. I'm gonna call it 4,000 square feet of pavement to be removed.
Okay.
Area number 2, the parking area, landscaped island, that's 665 square feet. So that's a reduction in 4,661 less impervious. Then what we're adding back into the site would be that building that you can see that I've showed you is 2,400 square feet. However, that building's placed on partial pavement areas, so the actual net increase in impervious is only 1,800 square feet. So if we're reducing 4,600, give or take, impervious, but we're only adding in 1,800, clearly that's a major improvement to what was approved before. And all due respect to Eric Diaz, we work with him on a lot of projects in Easton. I'm just not sure what else he would offer up other than verifying my data and spending money and agreeing with what we're doing. So
That is what a peer review does.
I understand. But sometimes projects could be simplified, and this one clearly is a pretty simple project compared to the other ones that we've talked about tonight. So I just would request the commission to consider projects that we don't need to drag on for months and months or weeks and weeks, that could be approved with relatively simple discussions.
No, that is a very good point. Thank you for walking us through that figure. I kind of think at that point, I really wasn't looking at that this way. I think I kind of agree with Commissioner Goodman now. I feel like does kind of make sense to approve.
To piggyback on that, Phil, I do appreciate Mr. Rogers' description. It kind of took, like, that was what I was trying to articulate and couldn't quite get the words, and then the way you explained it, Scott, that's the way I understood it to be. So thank you for the clarification.
You're welcome.
So does someone have to make a motion or?
I would make a motion for the amendment as proposed.
I will second.
So Goodman motion, Vecchio second, roll call vote, Carroll abstain.
Crossman, yes.
Goodman, yes.
Spadia, abstain.
Vecchio, yes.
So to clarify, is that approval of the amendment or is that not?
I don't know.
Jennifer, help us out.
I believe that to be an approval.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're up again.
Yep.
Thank you, Eric.
Thanks, everyone. Good night.
Good night. Up next is 16 Goodspeed.
So for the record, Scott Rogers again from JK Pumpkin Engineering. I know this is probably one of your favorite projects in the town of Easton. The good news is this is the last house in the subdivision, so I think we're getting closer to getting this project out of our hair, if you will. With all due respect to everyone that's worked on it for many years. So this project also is an amendment to an existing order of conditions. The project is number 16 Goodspeed. That's the cluster on the left-hand side at the cul-de-sac. And on the left-hand side, there's 3 houses, 2 of which are built, and this third one, the last one, is basically the house is pretty complete. A lot of the site work has been done. It's not totally complete. We're still waiting for this approval to this amendment, hopefully. So I wanted to show you the big part of the amendment that we're asking for here is, and I showed it in red so you can kind of see it.
I'm sorry, I'm not seeing any shared screen. Is anyone else?
Sorry. Having a problem sharing the screen. I apologize.
Take your time. We've kept you waiting plenty tonight.
All right, maybe you can see it now.
Yep.
Okay.
We'll need you to zoom in, but we can see it.
Yep. Yep. So you can clearly see the house there. On the left-hand side of that is the driveway, the common driveway coming down. On the southern side is the proposed garage. It's actually built, and you can see the 2 cars basically at the driveway. So in red that goes out to the common drive is the old driveway configuration, and you can kind of see as you enter from the common drive, it's sort of narrow, if you will, and then it kind of widens out and opens up to that 24-foot wide garage. So the applicant, looking at, the configuration of the driveway and the garage, it's pretty close to that common drive. It's not a huge driveway. So they've decided with the bigger car that'll be, using that garage, and the kind of configuration of how we designed it originally, they want to widen that out. So what that comes down to is 113 square feet of additional pavement. So with that as well, you can see the driveway proposed is lower than that, is down further south. And with that, that sediment forebay that was proposed before and the bioretention area will have to slide over, I'm going to call it 3 feet for the purpose of the discussion. So the other thing that we looked at, because obviously the bioretention area and the sediment forebay is handling runoff from this driveway and a portion of the common drive, we wanted to look and see what impact that would have to the drainage system, basically. So with that additional paved area, we looked at it in HydroCAD, and basically for the 100-year storm event, the old design would get you up to elevation 121.29. And with this new driveway, the configuration that we're showing you, which is 113 square feet additional, it brings you up to an elevation now of 121.44. So that's an increase, as you would expect, that there's more water going into that basin, so you expect a rise in water elevation. That's 0.15 feet, which is almost 2 inches. But that bioretention area does have a berm on it, and that berm is at 123. So basically, we have 1.56 feet of freeboard with this new design and typically 1 foot freeboard is recommended and required by the stormwater manual. So again, I don't want to belabor the point of the last hearing I had, but this is a great example of a project that's a simple amendment. I believe we analyzed it far enough to know that there are impacts to it, of course, but the impacts to that basin are already, there are significant, I don't want to use the word significant, there are impacts to it. However, the impacts to that basin are insignificant in the fact that the stormwater basin certainly can handle that additional 113 square feet of pavement. So without belaboring the point, I'd like to ask any questions that you may have for this one.
I have a note about abutter notifications. Did those go out?
Yes, they did, and they should have been uploaded to Permanence.
Yep. That is my only comment here. Anybody, Jen, do you have any staff comment?
Nope.
Members of the commission, any questions or comments?
I sat on the last approval of this project, Mr. Chair, back in 2016, and before that, I studied this entire filing before I got on the board, and as Scott said, it's quite an arduous process, and I don't see any need to belabor it any further. Let's put it to bed and everybody can move on. Great neighborhood over there, though.
It's true.
Nice land.
Motion to amend the notice of intent for 16 Goodspeed Lane as proposed.
So moved.
Carol motion, Goodman second. Roll call vote. Carol, I.
Grossman, aye.
Goodman,
Stady,
aye.
aye.
Vecchio, aye.
I think that's our last one with you tonight, right, Scott? Thank you for the patience.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your time.
Of course.
Night.
Good night.
Have a good night.
You too.
Up next is surety, release, or seizure of funds.
I
First
can make
is,
this quick. Everybody needs an extension to the next meeting.
all right, let's do that. Motion to continue 439, 212, 439 purchase, 212 Pequannocket, 42 Randall Street, all of them to the June 29, 2026 meeting of the Easton Conservation Commission.
Vecchio, second.
Carol motion, Vecchio with the artful second of my beautifully crafted motion. Roll call vote. Carol, I.
Grossman, aye.
Goodman, aye.
Stady, aye.
Vecchio, aye.
Board discussion.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
Oh, could I get a point of information about seizure? First for me. Never.
So seizure.
Read about it, heard about it, voted on something like this. So when was the last time we did it? Is this something common?
I think we've done it once since I've been here, but basically you posted a bond to do something and then didn't do that thing within accordance to the terms that we all set. So we take it and finish it.
Okay. That's fair enough. So
we're not like seizing someone's land. We're seizing money held in the escrow account to finish a project.
But we could get in the land seizing business, maybe.
Please no.
It's a good. Thank you.
You think enforcement's hard? Try taking people's land.
So that's the language in the agreement that everyone signed when they posted the surety money. And so that's why we have to use that language, because that's what's in the agreement that the developers signed. Clearly, we don't want to keep their money. We want them to just finish the project and come in for their COCs. So
right,
seems to be working, and they're all getting very close. So
it's not a positive return on investment for us to go do mitigation projects on their dime. So let's move through board discussion, review meeting minutes. Anybody have a motion on these?
I only have one note that for the May 11th meeting minutes, I have to correct Mr. Mazurki's address. Other than that, they're as proposed.
I found the meeting minutes of 4/27/26 and 5/11/26 to be in order, Mr. Chair. Motion to accept with the changes noted by the agent.
Goodman motion, Crossman second, roll call vote, Carol, I.
Crossman, aye.
Goodman, aye.
Beatty, aye.
Vecchio, aye.
CPC updates?
No updates. Last meeting was canceled. We have another meeting this Thursday.
Thank you very much. Chair updates. I did not attend town meeting. I'll admit it here. Anybody got any updates from town meeting?
It was pretty smooth. I attended, unlike you.
Thank you.
I saved the whole thing too, not just the fun parts, all the parts.
Good job.
I stayed till the end.
Yeah. Environmental planner updates.
Just a recent email from a civics class student looking for a reforestation project, and so there's potential for her and a couple friends to plant the American chestnut that I have growing on the sun porch.
Middle schoolers, sounds like.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I like that a lot. Swinging back to the closed item chair updates, I have a summer intern who is going to law school focusing on environmental law, and I'm wondering if I can involve her in reviewing bylaw and regs.
You can. At least she might be horrified by what they look like.
She was very excited about the project. We'll hopefully make that a further board discussion later on in the year.
She'll be switching to criminal law after one meeting.
All right, last up, any pertinent item not reasonably anticipated?
Yes, with the this would be the third week in a row, at least for me, seeing someone struggle with this Zoom function. Anybody want to do we want to revisit or make an agenda item again to discuss live meetings?
Ooh.
I still like Zoom meetings.
What
Zoom it is.
What did you guys say earlier? I abstain.
Yep.
I am merely exercising due diligence, and there's some folks who have asked me about it that don't like it. I don't like it. I can't stand it.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to it being an agenda item at some point in the future, like whatsoever, or even meetings where we know there's going to be a ton of volume where we do one or two in person. But my position has been since being on, I've always done them on Zoom, but also I think it saves the applicants a lot of money.
Yeah.
And I think it's a lower barrier to entry to, like, in particular, working families and to be able to participate in public comment.
I agree with all those points.
Yeah, I think I also participated in both. I was in in-person meetings and in Zoom, and it was definitely, I think it was more hard to get organized in person. Zoom's been flawless every time. Plus, you can just see the plans. It's cake. Passing it around is terrible.
I wouldn't say flawless.
Well, fair. No. Well, let me tell you though, in-person meetings tough. Everyone's getting up, going to the bathroom. Everyone's confused. It's like all over the place.
I don't know. We never had that, but why don't can we put that on the July meeting? Put it the same meeting as reorganization.
I got no objection to a formal conversation on it.
Yeah, whatever.
Go ahead.
Again, I'm doing this at the. I would like it, but I agree with all your points, with Mike's points and Ben's points. It is honestly, it's better. It's a better format for me. However, there are taxpayers out there who have communicated with me multiple times that they would like the in-person. Interestingly enough, none of them had an application for anything, nor did they have any comments. They just said that was their preference. So I'm just respecting those fellow taxpayers' wishes.
Please invite them to our discussion. I would really like input.
Yeah, I will certainly tell them about it when I see the agenda. I will share it.
All right, I'm gonna make. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut anybody off, but I have an important motion to make. All right, I'm doing it. Motion to adjourn.
Second. Vecchio, second.
Carol motion, Vecchio second. Roll call vote. Carol, aye.
Rossman, aye.
Goodman, aye.
Beatty, aye.
Vecchio, aye. Good night, all.
Okay.
Have a great night.
Classic long one. Good work.
Good job.